Part 30. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 299. Chris and the others did not leave immediately after helping the uncle to escape. First, Chris needs to check the status of the recorder, and then report what he heard here to the BSAA command center and ask them to share the information. They did not hide the information. Although the FBC did not do human affairs, they would not do this. The information that should be shared must be shared. As for the authenticity of this information, professional researchers will naturally verify it. At this time, others must protect Chris and play the Guard Athena game here. It wasn't that they didn't know that it would be better to change places, but that the information they obtained was important and needed to be shared in a timely manner, and the weapons and sufficient bullets in their hands gave them the confidence to do so. Carlos opened the northeast window facing the street, replaced the assault rifle in his hand with a 50-round drum magazine, and then set up the gun on the window sill. The northwest window is in charge of Sherry and Pold. The main door of the house is also in that direction and has been locked. Steve first cooperated with Sniper Daria to take down the second-floor balcony, where two directions could be taken care of at the same time. Then he would go to the back door of the house to guard the retreat. Listening to the other people fighting enthusiastically, he felt a little puzzled. Although he was named by Chris to join the Resident Evil mission because of the incident on Rockford Island, he felt that he had not played any role along the way. So far, he has not fired a single shot. Because he was not used to life in Tarasef, he originally thought he would live an exciting and tense life in BSAA, but he found that it was not as beautiful as he imagined. And just as he was wandering around in boredom, there was a knock on the back door. Steve was excited and smiled. Now is his chance to show off. "Commander, this is the latest information shared by BSAA." One of FBC Morgan's men was reporting to him. After reading it carefully, Morgan nodded. "The harvest over there looks pretty good, remember to send it to the Research Institute." Then, with a cold look on his face, he asked another subordinate in front of him, "Fediev, do you have anything to defend?" This subordinate is Commander-in-Chief Alphonse Fediev, who is commanding the Portland Biohazard Response Force. Because the front line was defeated, Morgan asked the other party to come over from the staff room in the same building to give them a whip. As for the commanders on the front line, he naturally would not call them over. Morgan is not at NATO headquarters now, but at the Lighthouse branch. Now the FBC is on the defensive. As long as Portland is sealed off and the scale of the infection does not expand, it will be good. Ahem. Fediev was looked at by Morgan with ferocious eagle eyes. He was under great pressure and said, "This biohazard situation has exceeded the assessment of our staff department. In the early battles, we were beaten by zombies with guns. I was caught off guard." Morgan crossed his fingers in front of him and said nothing. "Coupled with the fact that we were not equipped with gas masks, some soldiers became infected with symptoms. Although we solved the problem before they mutated, this had a great impact on morale." Fediev continued to talk about the difficulties he faced, as if this would make Morgan understand his difficulties. "Don't the staff have plans and preparations for these things?" Morgan built the FBC in accordance with the requirements of a national-level military organization. Similar to the Lighthouse Country's army, it was divided into 3 armies, sea, land, and air force, as well as a staff department, a logistics department and other departments. No. Fediev wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "They felt that those zombies couldn't stop bullets at all, and there were no witness reports of biological and chemical weapons, so they underestimated the enemy. He had to finalize the final plan of the staff department, so he was shirking responsibility and looking for someone to take the blame. Did they fight too many security wars?" Morgan cursed angrily and continued, "And before starting the mission, I told you to fight this first battle well, right? I even equipped you with armored vehicles to ensure the blockade, but you were still able to break through the blockade? Can those zombies chew up armored vehicles, or can those zombies with guns penetrate armored vehicles? Fedyaev did not dare to answer the question and kept thinking about how to get through this. Commander, our staff members are indeed monks who have been involved in security warfare. They have no anti-biochemical experience, so they are making deductions based on the Raccoon City incident. The person who broke the silence was the man who reported the situation before. He was Morgan's right-hand man. You don't have to make excuses for them. If you don't understand, you can learn more. How come those people from BSAA have all prepared gas masks and stuff? We entered the biohazard area one step ahead of them, and the zombies we faced were larger in scale. Fedyaev was not willing to be compared by Morgan with those of BSAA, and said, they only face a few thousand enemies, but we need to face hundreds of thousands. There are only 6 of them, but we have more than 5,000 front-line combatants. Also, if you hadn't underestimated the enemy and broken through the blockade, you wouldn't have had to face hundreds of thousands of enemies. The other side was already very dissatisfied with our performance. This dissatisfaction refers to the traditional military forces that support Morgan, that is, the forces that do not get along well with the X organization. As for the White House, the specific situation is still being concealed, and accurate disaster information has not been obtained. After all, the military will not have too blind confidence in the FBC. But the things that the traditional military forces conceal will sooner or later be exposed by Simmons, because there are also people from the X organization in the FBC. Simmons did not tell it. In addition to being busy with Aida's matter, another reason is that he wanted to avoid the other forces from breaking the jar and decided to wait until the dust settled on this biochemical crisis before exposing it. Morgan said unhappily, "Okay. I'll give you one last chance, get this done for me, or I'll change people." "Yes. I'll get it done right away." Fedyaev straightened his back, saluted and left. He didn't want to be scolded here anymore. "He wants to shift the blame to the staff," Morgan's assistant said after the commander-in-chief left. Morgan nodded and said, "I know, but the staff is his staff after all," but he pushed all the things to the staff. According to the intelligence, the plan he showed him was approved without even opening it. He was sponsored by those people to come to power, and he didn't have much real talent. Why did you still appoint him as the commander-in-chief of this mission? Field, he is our insurance. Field was a little confused, but Commander, the goal of this mission is to make the FBC famous, right? Shouldn't we send capable people? In fact, he had doubts about this since the beginning of the mission, but after all, it was Morgan's order, so he still carried it out firmly. Morgan snorted coldly and said, "If we fail, we can also use the excuse that these termites are dragging us down, and we can push them out to take the blame. Someone stuffed those termites into my organization, so I have to clean them up first and knock them down by the way. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you sponsor us. The real sponsors are not those guys." Field nodded to show that he understood. It is more important to clean up the termites in the organization than to make the FBC famous. Morgan did this to get a reason to clean up the termites, and at the same time to win over the major investors, and then clean up the termites in the organization in one go. Field, are there any suitable candidates in the Red Claws that we have absorbed before to be put into the staff? Assistant Field replied, "There are many qualified soldiers, and they all played an important role when the blockade was broken, but when it comes to the staff, said to clean up the termites in the organization, but Morgan would not deliberately mess up this task. The elite troops composed of his loyal subordinates and former Red Claws are still on the front line to guarantee his mission, and this unit has the power to refuse Fedyaev's orders. In addition, he is an old friend of the commander of the local lighthouse country blockade force, and he asked him to help him. Those soldiers who have done well should record their military merits and promote them later. Also, we have been friends for many years, so we should speak frankly. The Red Claws had 3 more suitable candidates, but they were not in the Red Claws and were not absorbed. That woman really has bad intentions. I knew she would not hand over the Red Claws so easily. Morgan was referring to Samus, the former commander of the Red Claws. Field continued to explain the situation. Among them, Samus and Tanya recently went to South Africa. According to my speculation, they probably want to join the GIMZ force, and the other person, Luo Guang, may have joined the Special Operations Command. Did the GIMZ force find anything? Morgan had asked his men to investigate competitors before. Field remembered all the information in his mind and could answer immediately. The intelligence about Wusong is really fake, and there are traces to follow. It seems that it is just for people to investigate. It is very unlikely that a person's life history can easily find corresponding clues and witnesses. Then there are the members of the army. It can be said that there are good and bad people. There are people of various identities from various forces. Among them, it is worth noting that nearly half of the personnel are former Umbrella Corporation personnel. What do you think? We use this to create public opinion and finally incorporate them into our team. Morgan proposed an idea. He didn't even think about sending people to be undercover like other forces, but wanted to pack up and take away the GIMZ troops directly, and then use these people to strengthen their own power and create a golden signboard. Field thought for a while and replied, "You can give it a try. But the main task now is still on the Portland matter. After this matter is completed, the GIMZ matter will be handed over to you," Morgan replied. Got it? After leaving Morgan's office, Fadib finally breathed a sigh of relief. His family donated a lot of money to FBC, so he was not worried about his position being removed. It was just that Morgan put too much pressure on him, which made him unconsciously nervous. After that, he did not return to the staff office, but waited for someone to come in his office. "You are here, what did the boss say? Did you say good things for me later?" Fadib asked Field, but saw that the other party shook his head. Fadiyev's suppressed emotions turned into anger. He slammed the table and roared, "What? My family didn't give you so much money just to let you shake your head at me. If you can't do the job, don't ask for so much money." Field's face didn't change much, but he looked down on the guy in front of him. As Morgan's personal assistant, he would have expected that someone would try to bribe him to reveal Morgan's affairs. After reporting to his superiors, Morgan's instructions were to take the money but not work. If it were someone else, Morgan might have said something like playing the game against the enemy and let them become his spies in turn, but Field, who had followed him for many years, couldn't play that game. As long as Field took the money but didn't work, then naturally no one would bribe him again, and he could also take the opportunity to make a fortune and achieve a win-win situation with Morgan himself. As for the possibility that Field was greedy and pretended to obey but actually disobeyed, if he was such a person, how could Morgan let him stay with him for so long and even become friends? Originally, the boss was planning to have you fly to Portland right now and command the battle on the front line. At this point, Field stopped talking and looked at the angry Fadib, who instantly turned into a flattering look. Fadib was on the front line, and what happened was not under his control, so he immediately admitted his weakness and said, "Oh, I was just joking, don't be so stingy. I will transfer the apology money to your account later." Chris and others on the other side fought a hard battle, but there was no particularly dangerous situation. They solved the zombies attracted by the gunshots in a proper manner. It seems that we didn't know the name of this uncle until the end. He endured so much pain just to provide us or others with useful information. Shwerui came to the uncle and closed his eyes with her hands. Pold frowned and said, "Don't touch the bodies. Although they all mutated because of inhaling black smoke, we don't know if the black liquid is contagious." "I know, I'm a doctor." Sherry took out a bottle of disinfectant she mixed with her other hand. washed the black liquid off the waterproof gloves, and then found a clean cloth on the spot to wipe the gloves clean. It's much easier to deal with than T-virus zombies or biological weapons, Carlos said as he walked back to the living room. Daria was still on the second floor and had not come down yet. She had to continue to be alert to the situation around the house. When they were dealing with the enemy, they often knocked down one, and the surrounding zombies would immediately pounce on it and bite it, giving Carlos and the others the opportunity to easily deal with the enemy or change magazines. Steve finally had the opportunity to shoot at the zombies, and he killed a lot of zombies by himself at the back door. Although there was the pleasure of one man blocking the pass, the pump-action shotgun was still not as refreshing as the submachine guns like Uzi, which made him feel a little regretful. Don't be careless. Everyone, report the ammunition situation, Chris replied casually and asked everyone. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 300. Everyone has a decent amount of ammunition and can continue the mission. We're trying our luck everywhere and it feels like the efficiency is still a little low. Do you have any good ideas? Chris asked after confirming that the ammunition support continued the operation. Shwerui raised her hand and said, "Actually, I have an idea, but I don't know if it's feasible." "You tell me first." Generally speaking, if a small town like this wants to announce a disaster or issue an earthquake warning at the city hall, it will be promoted through the town radio, right? Although Shwerui didn't tell the whole plan, others had already reacted. You want to use the radio to gather the survivors? Is this too dangerous for the survivors? Chris asked. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Diamond Suit. Sherry said, but it's better than us running around like headless flies, and we can make the broadcast only broadcast in a certain part of the town, so that we can attract a large number of zombies away. These zombies are different from those we have encountered before. They are not as sensitive to sounds as imagined. Chris still has doubts. He hopes to formulate a perfect plan, preferably to ensure that no accidents occur. But it always attracts a lot of zombies. Shwerui also knew this, but there was no perfect plan in the world, and she had tried her best to consider the safety of the survivors. Steve raised his hand and said, "I remember that the island's radio room is also in the city hall. Anyway, the communication has not been interrupted. We can let the survivors contact us directly." "Not bad," Kid Carlos praised. Chris nodded, "Just do as you say, let's continue setting off." The subsequent rescue operation on Smoke Island went very smoothly. After Chris and the others implemented their plan, they once again successfully rescued a family of 3. The family was playing the board game D&D in the basement at the time, and happened to escape the disaster. On the other hand, the information that Chris conveyed back also played a big role in providing research direction for the Lighthouse Country's Institute of Biochemical Virology. Just like a key, after identifying the research direction, subsequent research will fall into place, and even a drug research project for the treatment of depression and other emotional-related mental illnesses has been proposed. Although no one collected the black smoke, microscopic observation of the black body fluid flowing out of the infected person revealed the presence of an unknown fungus in the body fluid. Researchers then performed an autopsy on the captured infected person and found that the brain was infected by fungus, and black-green mold spots and black hyphae appeared on the brain epidermis. And strangely enough, the infected person's blood has essentially been replaced by this black fluid that contains a lot of fungus. This does not affect the operation of various systems of the human body at all. In a sense, it even enhances physical fitness. The cardiopulmonary and digestive functions are much stronger than those of ordinary people. Based on the condition of the brain, the researchers decided to try to perform in vivo surgery on living infected people. Although Chris and the others mentioned that these zombies may still have pain sensation and individual consciousness, the researchers also conducted anesthesia tests in a humanitarian spirit. However, the anesthesia that can give general anesthesia to an elephant was not able to anesthetize the infected person on the operating table. After the anesthesia was administered, it was even observed that the elephant's body became visibly thinner. The operation took more than 10 hours. The researchers carefully scraped off the hyphae on the brain's surface. However, in order to ensure that the brain was not damaged, they did not clean it too clean. They mainly wanted to test the effect. As a result, the condition of the infected did not improve, but there were no deaths either. The research manager responsible for growing an unknown fungus in a petri dish observed that the fungus developed rapidly, partly due to its good appetite. This would explain why the man who dedicated his life to science in the report Chris uploaded felt increasingly hungry. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the research director also discovered that these black fungi secrete a black liquid, and proposed that this secreted substance is the culprit that affects the human brain. Anyway, there was already an infected person lying on the operating table, and these researchers decided to make the best use of the secreted black liquid and inject it into his body. The result is that the infected person dies, with unknown strains of fungus growing on the emaciated body and spraying black smoke. Based on this phenomenon, the project manager believed that there might be a large number of fungal strains under the smoke island, and sent a request for assistance in research to the military. As soon as the local military leader heard about the existence of such a thing, he immediately contacted Morgan and asked him to be responsible for sending people to the center of Smoke Island. Aren't BSAA and GIMZ on Smoke Island? Have they checked the situation there? Morgan was worried about being intercepted by his competitors, so he thought about asking his friends to order BSAA to withdraw from Smoke Island. They did go to the center of the island where black smoke was coming out, but they didn't have the equipment, so they didn't go down to check the situation and then reported it to us. The military leader looked at his watch and continued, "Didn't you mention before that you wanted to build the reputation of FBC through this battle? So I ordered them to withdraw. Looking at the time, they are almost back." This was exactly what he wanted, and he didn't have to say it himself to avoid saying that he deliberately suppressed his opponent and competed for credit. "Thank you. I'll treat you to dinner when I'm free." "You're welcome. Your veterans resettlement plan has helped us a lot," the military leader smiled and replied. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Although it did not completely solve the problem of veterans in the lighthouse country, Morgan's plan still eased the pressure on the military and social conflicts. With this relationship, Morgan has such a high prestige in the traditional military forces of the lighthouse country. Otherwise, the FBC would have praised them long ago on the day when the Navy, Army, and Air Force divisions were established. Of course, the FBC also took into account the emotions of the lighthouse country military, so the FBC headquarters was set up at the NATO headquarters in Europe. After the two exchanged a few more polite words, Morgan hung up the phone and said to his assistant Field, who had returned, "Send out the berets and ask them to explore the source of the Smoke Island. Tell them to be fully prepared." The berets are the most elite troops under Morgan, composed of some veterans of the Vietnam War as officers, and retired Special Forces soldiers who are in their prime. Field received the order and left the room to make arrangements. The berets troops were in place quickly. With Morgan's support, all the equipment and weapons they needed were ready at the same time, just waiting for the people to arrive. There were 3 teams in total, 12 people, and they were one of the squadrons of the berets. Not all of them were sent out. In Morgan's opinion, they were just going to conduct reconnaissance and investigation, and bring back some things needed by the Institute. Those zombies didn't seem to have any special abilities, and the other members of the berets had other tasks. Most of them went to a place called Harlan City to perform their tasks, so Morgan made such arrangements. The 12 people set off in 2 helicopters and soon arrived at their destination. However, they did not enter directly from the central cave, but from the edge of the large crack that spanned the entire mountain. After nailing the fixed nails on the cliff, everyone entered the mountain one by one. The environment below was pitch black. Everyone was wearing a full set of breathing and circulation equipment and night vision goggles. The M4 assault rifles in their hands were equipped with various tactical tools. Two of the soldiers even carried a flamethrower as a killer. The ground and walls inside seemed to be covered with furry carpets, all of which were fungal hyphae, like a mushroom stall. Unlike what they expected, they thought they would see mushrooms all over the ground. When they stepped on them, they would make a crisp snapping sound. Standing firmly and counting the number of people, everyone was in a passage, and they only needed to be on guard in front and behind for the time being. A1, the thermal sensor shows that there is no other heat source here except us, one of the team members reported. A1 is the code name of the captain of Team A, and his subordinates are code names A2 to A4. The same is true for Team B and Team C, but Team C does not have C4, only the code name C5. There is no distinction between Alpha and Beta, which is also a feature of Morgan's team. B3 has collected the samples here. B3 put away the test tube and reported. Let's go on. Morgan looked at the screen in front of him. This is the real-time monitor of the Beret Squadron, which is convenient for him to convey orders in time. Morgan was also a soldier before, so he naturally would not do remote micromanipulation. He was more for controlling the direction of the team's advance. In order to ensure smooth signal, they will also install a signal transfer station in the middle of the road. Received A1 answered and led the team to continue forward. The further they go in, the more turbid the air becomes. Through the night vision goggles, they can also see floating black fungi. With a click, the leader A1 stepped on a pool of liquid, which was the black secretion of fungi. At the same time, strains grew on the surrounding walls and the ground. It seems that the unknown fungi here are better developed. But strangely, they didn't see any animal skeletons, and there was no sunlight here before the earthquake. So how do these fungi feed themselves? Commander, are these fungi enough? Their primary purpose is to collect the fungi here to confirm whether the fungi infecting the body are of the same type, whether they are different in the natural environment, etc. After collecting, you will go to the source center to confirm the situation. If there is nothing special or different, evacuate directly there. In order to support them, Morgan built a small base at Chris's relatively flat evacuation point to facilitate support and evacuation at any time. The further you go in, the fewer fungal strains there are, and the mushroom stalls are more like tree roots and spider webs. Just when they passed a long and narrow passage and could only choose to move in a long snake formation, the C5 team members who were at the end of the team and responsible for guarding the rear were attacked from the side by a strange creature. It turned out that there was nothing behind the wall, but it was covered by the mushroom stalls, so it could not be found. C5's reaction speed was already very fast, but the mysterious creature was too close to him, and the location where it attacked was not within his alert range, so he only had time to turn around and point the gun at the enemy before being dragged away. The gunshots rang out but soon stopped, followed by his screams from the cave entrance. Although others did not see the true face of the attacker, Morgan saw it clearly. It was a werewolf-like creature, much larger than an adult white male. The color of its skin could not be seen due to the camera, but he saw hyphae and strains growing on its body. Morgan immediately took a screenshot and sent it to the Institute to ask them to confirm whether this monster was transformed from those infected people. If it was really a mutant from the infected, Poland's cleanup plan would have to start as soon as possible, and if necessary, it might have to use weapons like those that destroyed Raccoon City. You keep going, C5 is doomed. Although the camera could not see C5's situation, Morgan could hear C5's shouting suddenly stop. Morgan gritted his teeth. He felt very painful to lose an elite soldier who had been piled up with a lot of money in one encounter. Damn it, the captain of Team C vented. After this incident, the Berets became more cautious, especially alert to the walls on both sides, fearing that monsters would appear again at any time. They did not have the right props to explore the way to confirm whether there were any holes, so they could only use this stupid method. What they didn't know was that the caves on the walls were actually sentinels, and those mysterious monsters already knew that there were invaders coming. Let's call these monsters fungus beasts for now. They had no other emergencies along the way, and successfully arrived at a place that looked like a hall. There was a crack above the hall, and they could see the night sky above. In addition, there were many tunnels of different sizes on the walls around here. A 3, is there any reaction from the thermal sensor? A 1 asked. No reaction, a 3 replied. Those infected with fungi have a higher body temperature than normal people, so they brought thermal sensors in to help find those enemies. Commander, shall we continue to move forward? I wonder how many monsters have taken Kino away. They were in the dark, and although they had night vision goggles, they were not as clear as their own eyes, and the enemy seemed to be able to blend into the environment, which made them very uncomfortable. They were elite, but they also cherished their lives. For Morgan, it took a lot of money and connections to build this unit, and it was not used as cannon fodder. Forget it, is there any space above you? Morgan asked. A 1 replied, yes, and there is enough space. Okay. Hold on, I'll send a helicopter over. Got it? The evacuation helicopter was very close, and there was no cover here, so these berets directly set up their formation on the spot to ensure that someone was watching in every direction. Soon, there were movements from the tunnels of different sizes, and everyone was on guard, shooting at the rushing fungus beasts. They knocked down several of them, but failed to kill them. They saw the fungus beasts struggling to get up and limping to continue charging. Flame spray, the leader immediately ordered. 2 soldiers holding flamethrowers walked out of the queue, one on the left and one on the right, pressed the launch button, and then swept left and right, spraying flames in front of their team, creating a wall of fire, trying to block the enemy. At this moment, the fungus beasts that had been lurking on the heads of the berets opened their completely dark eyes, dropped from the sky, and pounced on the delicacies that had entered their nests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 301. Chris also returned to the hangar where they started, which was a military base of the Lighthouse Nation. However, this military base was different from the base used by the FBC frontline troops. This base was much smaller. Taylor, Sue, and other survivors had been taken away to the hospital, so they were unable to say goodbye to Chris and the others. However, Sue still left a thank you letter to Chris and the others, and Tyrone was not in a good mental state after experiencing these things, so he did not leave any words. Chris could only pray that he could get out of the shadow. After this cooperation with the GIMZ troops, Chris also discovered the difference between the other troops and his BSAA, although the tasks performed were basically the same 3, investigating the source, rescuing survivors, and cleaning up zombies or biochemical monsters. It was not that the other party would not do the job for money, but that the considerations of both parties when performing the tasks were very different. The GIMZ troops would prioritize their own safety before doing things, while their side would prioritize completing the task. It seems that there is not much difference, but when they act together, the difference can be seen, especially when facing Taylor. The two sides have different ideas. However, because Chris is the captain, Carlos did not insist on his own ideas in order to avoid internal strife. Of course, there is another reason. The zombies here are not a big threat to their Angel team, which is much easier than the biological weapons they faced in Raccoon City. In fact, it was a very dangerous situation when Taylor aimed his gun at Chris. The revolver of Uncle Irwin made a loud sound. Carlos also broke out in a cold sweat for Chris when he knew the situation in the room at that time. This sudden loud noise is likely to make the nervous Taylor pull the trigger. The reason why Taylor did not pull the trigger was that he was in a trance and did not hear any sound from the outside world until Chris, the mother-killing enemy, spoke, and the surrounding sounds rang in his ears again. "Hank, our mission is completed." "Yes, the documents have been signed." "You asked Caddy to follow up on the other party's payment." Carlos took out his phone and called Hank to report the situation. "Received, the boss's work is done, and he will be back soon." "Where is our boss? On a business trip again?" "He doesn't answer the phone or reply to text messages," Carlos asked casually. "The Lighthouse Country Commission this time, and sent a South African clerk directly to the GIMZ unit's South African training ground to commission it without Luo Guang's email reply." Hank replied, "Who knows, but you also know that every time the boss comes back, there will definitely be big moves." "Alas, that means I may not have time to take a vacation this time, damn it." Carlos sighed exaggeratedly and replied, "Come back quickly if you know. If there is an emergency, go directly to the boss or Caddy. I'm ready to get on the plane." Before, Hank went to carry out the task of picking up Louis. Nothing went wrong when he took over the mission target from the Donald family, and Louis had no intention of escaping. The only trouble came from Louis himself. It was a torture for a taciturn person like Hank to escort a guy who kept talking all day long. But all this is over. He went to a certain gourmet country and sent Louis to the GIMZ Force Institute and left, waiting for the plane. At this time, he looked at the cute little white wolf's head following him, and his hand stroked unconsciously. His next task was to bring his boss's dog back to South Africa. When Louis arrived at the institute, he was immediately attracted by the sophisticated equipment inside. The equipment here was much better than he had imagined, and he was humorous and talented. He quickly got along with Dr. Linda Baldwin, the director of the institute. "Got it?" Carlos shook his head and hung up the phone. Just as he was about to ask others to pack up and leave, he saw Chris coming over with a serious face. "Carlos, the military called. They asked us to continue a mission." "What?" "We have completed the mission and received a 5-star rating." Carlos narrowed his eyes and looked at Chris. Chris briefly explained the mission. "The FBC sent people to investigate the big crack we didn't go down before. Could it be that something happened to the FBC people inside, so they asked us to rescue people?" Carlos had a bad feeling. Chris nodded, indicating that the other party was right, and said, "Then the military asked us to carry out the rescue mission." "Haha, Chris, don't you think it's strange?" Seeing Chris's puzzled face, Carlos continued, "Why did the military notify us to rescue people? The FBC is rich and has a lot of manpower. Why did they ask the 6 of us to rescue people?" "The military said that the FBC is now doing its best to ensure the blockade of Portland, so it can't transfer manpower for the time being. If the FBC fighters are transferred from other places, the people sent out before will not be able to hold on." This is obviously what Morgan thought of in advance. Chris told Carlos what the military said, and continued to express his own thoughts. "Now that the FBC and the military can't move, they can only rely on us. If we don't go, won't those soldiers be abandoned there by the FBC? They are all precious anti-biochemical fighters." "You misunderstood me, Chris." Carlos was obviously not persuaded, and said, "I will ask you a few questions. First, why does the military care so much about the FBC soldiers who disappeared on Smoke Island? They are not so kind. Second, what exactly did those soldiers encounter that caused them to get into trouble? Are these soldiers really still alive?" The military will definitely not tell the first question, but the second question, the military did not provide intelligence information, which is likely to be deliberately concealed. If there is no deliberate concealment, it can further prove that the place is full of unknowns and very dangerous, and it is not something that the six of us can solve. Intelligence is what the GIMZ troops care about most, because the boss is such a person, and without intelligence support, he does not want to set off rashly. Another point is that Carlos used to be a member of the UBCS unit of Umbrella Corporation. He was used as cannon fodder in the mission in Raccoon City. The current situation is too familiar to him. Do you mean there is a problem here? There must be a problem. Anyway, I won't go, Carlos said, and asked everyone to leave. Wait a minute, what about the military? Who cares? I'm a mercenary. This is why Luo Guang chose to abandon the convenience of the official and make his unit a mercenary organization. Cooperating with those officials while maintaining independence is the best operating model for the GIMZ unit. As for situations such as being suppressed by the official, Luo Guang has his own way to solve it. Chris, we are teammates. I give you a suggestion. It's better not to go. Chris did not answer, and fell into deep thought watching the Angel team leaving with large and small bags. Steve listened to the conversation between the two and said to Chris, "What should we do now? If we go there alone, won't we die?" "I don't know. Let me ask O'Brien first." Chris took out his phone. Carlos was about to leave the barracks in his car, but was stopped by the guard who had heard the news long ago. Morgan was forcing the GIMZ troops and the BSAA to be his cannon fodder. If everyone performed poorly, the FBC would not be criticized and publicized for its unsatisfactory performance in this biochemical crisis. However, Carlos would naturally not conflict with the other party, but chose to call home. It is best to solve this kind of thing through the upper channels. In this way, even if the offended person wants to retaliate, he has to consider the forces behind GIMZ. As for why Carlos knew that there were other forces behind GIMZ, he also noticed it from many clues, otherwise their organization would have been recruited by the FBC long ago. "Hello, is this Cuddy?" Carlos took out his phone and called Cuddy under the watchful eyes of the military camp guard. "It's me, I'm helping you contact the porter." Except for the ammunition, the weapons and equipment that Carlos and others brought were all brought by themselves. "Well, let's put that aside for now. We were stopped from leaving the military camp. Their superiors told us to help them rescue the FBC troops. Did you get the receipt? Did you stamp it?" "It's all done, and it's still a 5-star rating," Carlos replied. "Okay, I'll contact the boss. Hurry up, or they'll use force." After hanging up the phone, Carlos said to the guard, "Let's wait here for a while, is it okay? Let the superiors solve this kind of thing, there's no need for us to hurt each other." As he said that, he handed over a pack of cigarettes. The guard nodded. Although he looked down on mercenaries, it was indeed as the other party said, there was no need to hurt each other, and he took the cigarettes. When the GIMZ troops received the commission from the government of Lighthouse Country, Luo Guang was in the underground mine and did not receive any text messages or phone calls. Later, Hank accepted the commission according to his authority and sent the Angel team to carry out the mission. It takes about 15 hours for the Angel team to fly directly from South Africa to Lighthouse Country, and Spain is 6 hours faster than Lighthouse Country, so when they meet up with Chris and others to carry out the mission, Luo Guang has already gotten up and gone to Madrid. After dealing with the little girl Kara, Luo Guang, who was having lunch, received a call from Cuddy. He listened to Cuddy's recent briefing to him, and finally the Carlos incident, in order to make Luo Guang understand the whole process of the matter. "Got it, I'll find someone to solve the problem." Luo Guang hung up the phone and called Leon. "Hello." Leon finally got the vacation he had dreamed of. He and Mike went out for 2 consecutive days, so he was still sleeping in the hotel room. "There is a mission." Luo Guang thought it would be better to wake Leon up first. When Leon heard this, he immediately sat up on the bed. When he was about to pick up the clothes beside him, he suddenly stopped. After glancing at the caller ID on his phone with some uncertainty, he breathed a sigh of relief and complained, "Luo Guang, you scared me to death. Also, you didn't know you were still alive after falling off a cliff. Call us right away, believe it, I don't believe you followed Ada immediately after you survived." You know how sad Ashley was at that time. Leon reviewed the mission and reflected on his shortcomings, and he also figured this out. Now Luo Guang called him to explain that Luo Guang's mission was over. It was just that he had been dragged by Mike to experience hot Spanish girls and fine wine since the holiday, so he had no chance to complain. Unexpectedly, Luo Guang would come to his door right now. Sorry, it's a pity that my mission failed. Also, I have something to ask you." Seeing that Leon seemed to be complaining for a long time, Luo Guang quickly interrupted, "Can you please give me Ashley's mobile phone number? In this world, convenient communication programs have not yet appeared. Phone calls and mobile text messages are the main channels for long-distance communication. But soon, this situation will be broken, and the online chat tools Luo Guang invested in both the lighthouse country and a mysterious country will soon be online." Leon was a little surprised that Luo Guang would take the initiative to ask for a girl's phone number. However, Luo Guang misunderstood what Leon meant and said, "Don't say you don't have her phone number. Every time a handsome guy like you does a task with a woman, your address book will have a few more women's phone numbers." "I do, it's just that I wonder why you wanted to take Ashley's phone number. You already have a girlfriend." Leon decided not to answer the other party's teasing and fought back. "Didn't you say that Ashley is very sad? Apologize, and by the way, I want her to help with something. If that doesn't work, you can give me the president's phone number. Tell me what it is first." Luo Guang didn't hide what he was going to do. Anyway, his current role was to be a lobbyist for GIMZ. "Shall I help you with this matter? Just don't bother Ashley. Leon is an agent directly under the president." Luo Guang rejected the other party's kindness. "Leon, it's better for you not to get involved in this matter. People in official circles have no control over their own actions, and I am a free man now." "Okay, then be careful." Leon did not reject Luo Guang's kindness. Afterwards, Luo Guang called Ashley using the phone number given by Leon. "Hello, I'm Ashley, who are you?" Ashley's tone sounded very happy, and she must have come out of the kidnapping incident. Luo Guang said, "Ashley, I am Luo Guang. I won't be fooled now, Luo Guang is dead." Ashley puffed her face and said angrily, "Sorry, I didn't tell Ashley in time that I was fine." Luo Guang specifically pointed out that he was apologizing for not telling her. "Humph. I'll forgive you this time. By the way, I have good news. My dad has promised me to receive agent training." Ashley quickly forgave Luo Guang and happily shared her joy. This made Luo Guang unable to find a suitable opportunity to reveal the purpose of his call. "Luo Guang, are you asking for Leon's phone number?" "Yes, I have something to do with your father, but it's not suitable to go through Lion's channel." "Yes, I remember Leon said you are not an agent," Ashley said after her excitement subsided. Luo Guang simply told Ashley the matter and said, "So I need to talk to the president about it. I hope your father will give you a chance because I have helped you." While on the phone, Luo Guang received detailed information from Kaidi, including the latest situation in Portland that Shuirui mentioned while sitting in the Hummer. In addition, there is also information found by the Donald family using the X organization's intelligence network. How come such a huge organization as the FBC has so few spies from the X organization? So this is the real reason why you called me. What a proposition. Luo Guang immediately sounded the alarm and used his intelligence attribute of breaking through to reply immediately, "Apologizing is the first purpose. Hey, I won't tease you anymore. I'll help you talk about this. Anyway, my dad wants to return the favor to you." Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 302. Return the favor. Luo Guang felt that Ashley's words were a bit strange. Her father was the president of the lighthouse country, and the troops he sent out were his direct troops. Moreover, the Special Operations Command's special agents directly under the president have the responsibility to protect the president's family. How can they say they owe the other party a favor just because they have completed their job duties? Ashley replied, "Yes, my dad is a good man. He said that although this is work, it is true that you saved me." This kidnapping experience turned into a magnificent adventure due to the beautification of her memory and the processing of her own thoughts, and she later told it to her father. Ashley is the key to the Illuminati's control over the top leaders of the lighthouse country, so she has not actually encountered any real danger to her life. It is true that the scythe of death is constantly approaching her, but it is still not as low as the danger Luo Guang and the others encountered. Phew. And no matter how beautiful and cute she is, she doesn't have much physical attraction in front of those parasitic infections, so basically the only time she gets hurt is when she gets bumped into. But Lyon's report has not yet been reported. The president of the lighthouse country was naturally frightened by the story told by Ashley without knowing the specific situation, so Ashley successfully obtained her father's permission and arranged for her to have a professional agent instructor. As for favors, it was really because of his father's personality that Leon was able to successfully get the vacation he wanted. Ashley seemed to think that Luo Guang's silence was due to hesitation, so she pushed him and said, "My dad's term will only end this year. He may not be able to be re-elected after that, and his favor will be worthless by then." In fact, this is what her father told her, because the Raccoon City incident left him with no hope of re-election, so he has no plans to participate in the next election. Luo Guang chuckled and said, "Your dad will definitely spank you if he knows you said this. My dad can't bear to let you go, you pervert. Then it's up to you. If that doesn't work, just tell your dad that I have real information about the Portland incident." Luo Guang originally planned to make a small deal with the other party. Such a relationship would be healthier. The emphasis in this sentence was truth because he found that the true situation in that city was concealed by the local military chief. Returning to Carlos, the waiting time is always long, but what makes Carlos feel strange is that the military did not urge him during this time. However, he found that the BSAA helicopter did not take off during this period, so he speculated that the BSAA superiors also objected to this order. The guard at the gate of the military camp suddenly answered the phone, then walked over to the Humvee and patted the window. After Carlos lowered a third of the car window, the doorman said, "It's okay from above, let's go." "Okay, thank you." Morgan on the other side was also on the phone with the military leader of the incident, and his face was very ugly. Because he had been informed that neither BSAA nor GIMZ would be dispatched to conduct rescue operations by FBC personnel. Although the military leader and Morgan were good friends, in terms of both positions, the military leader had a higher status in this mission, so Morgan did not affect his relationship with his friend because of his momentary anger. After GIMZ received the evaluation form, the employment relationship between the two parties was considered to be over. It was indeed unreasonable for the military to force Carlos and others under house arrest. But the Lighthouse Army is not a benevolent person. He had his own considerations in agreeing to Morgan's help. At first, he planned to use coercion to force GIMZ to work for free. It was even more sinister than Carlos and the others thought. The military leader originally planned to let Carlos and others die directly on Smoke Island, and the evaluation sheets would be destroyed accordingly. He could also take this opportunity to denounce G.I.M.Z's poor performance, and even take to enrich one's own wallet from the other party's liquidated damages. But the person who can sit in this position is not a fool who only sees money. Asking the guard to block the other party was because the military leader wanted to see if there was any background behind the GIMZ organization or its response attitude. He did not force the other party to a dead end immediately, leaving room for recovery. The mercenaries said it sounds like they are rootless duckweeds, but they are afraid that people like the mercenaries will go crazy and cause trouble, and they will be covered in feces and urine. Are you saying that the president called you personally to ask about the situation, so you didn't hide anything and told the president everything? Morgan was still a little unbelievable. We agreed to keep it a secret together, but why did you, an old friend, just report everything to the superiors? Don't you know what it means to deceive someone and conceal it from someone else? The head of the military was helpless, but he had no choice. I wanted to hide this at first, but the president obviously knew about the current situation in Portland from other channels and scolded me. Did one of BSAA and GIMZ secretly report it? It's not like that. They only know the general situation in Portland, but the president also got a lot of details. It is really possible and only possible that BSAA and GIMZ have no connections to contact the president directly, the military leader added in his mind. I understand Morgan already understood that there were spies of the president in his team, but he knew it was useless and did not dare to attack those people. He could only pray that those spies would all die in Portland. Sacrifice for the country. Morgan, you are not only the head of the FBC, but also the director of our country's biological prevention. Therefore, the president feels that this matter can no longer be completed by outsiders, so the matter you asked me to help with before has also fallen through. The military leader explained the cause and effect of the matter clearly, although the president did not explicitly ask him to cancel the order and let the GIMZ and BSAA leave. But the timing was too coincidental, and what was worse was that he had not received any protests from the BSAA and GIMZ. Now he also blamed his old friend in his heart. He had said before how powerful his FBC was, but in the end, there were many moths. I understand. I will send more people over. Please take care of it. Morgan said, and after exchanging a few pleasantries, he hung up the phone and said to Field, "Damn it, our plan failed. Don't start the public opinion war on the GIMZ side." Although there was no evidence, for the sake of safety, he decided to postpone the plan to annex the GIMZ troops and concentrate on defeating the BSAA first. In fact, as Carlos suspected, even if they immediately set out by helicopter to rescue, the berets sent to Smoke Island to perform the mission could not be rescued and would have been wiped out long ago. It's not just because the police and bandits have never raised their heads since ancient times, and they were attacked by the fungus beasts above their heads. More importantly, unless the fuel of the flamethrower is directly poured on the fungus beasts, the fungus beasts will ignore the firewall and rush over to attack the berets elite behind them. In the end, the fungus beasts can be said to have taken down the enemies who invaded their nests without any injuries. Morgan kept a secret about the characteristics of the fungus beasts and did not report it. He only told his friend that there were strange creatures in the mountains of Smoke Island. In the original plan, he intended to use these fungus beasts to spread more biochemical crises around the world, so that countries would give more assistance to his organization, grow stronger, and take his power to a higher level. But he was not the kind of person who wanted to rule the world. When he saw that the heat resistance of those fungus beasts was so strong, and the fiery fire, which could effectively deal with biochemical viruses and biochemical monsters, was defeated by these fungus beasts, he instantly gave up the idea of using these fungus beasts. If he could not solve the biochemical crisis caused by himself, how could he ask for more funding and power? What should we do now? Should we ask all the combatants of the lighthouse country to come to support us? Field asked. Morgan nodded helplessly and said, "It can only be like this. The situation has changed. Let's withdraw Fadayev and replace him with a more normal commander-in-chief, and then prepare more ammunition and solve the problem with bullets and shells for me." I understand. Field took the order and left the office. Just before Morgan talked with the Portland military, Luo Guang also talked with a big shot. That person was Ashley's father Graham, who is also the current president of the Lighthouse State. The reason is that as a father, he keenly noticed that his daughter had a different excitement when discussing Luo Guang, and naturally thought of the love between men and women. For Ashley's marriage arrangement, he did not have any special arrangements. If he wanted to have a political marriage, he just needed to not find a scumbag or a sea king. As for whether it is necessary to have a good match, he will investigate from many aspects. As long as the man is motivated and has the ability, it is not difficult for him to get a good job with his political resources. Besides, he will earn so much money, and it will be given to his daughter in the end, which is enough for her to have a rich material life, so the most important thing for a son-in-law is to be good to his daughter and give her happiness. So after he knew what Ashley said, although he promised his daughter to help, he had to talk to the other party in person first. He originally misunderstood that Luo Guang deliberately let his daughter speak for him, but after hearing what Luo Guang told his daughter and her explanation, he knew that he had misunderstood. The other party originally planned to talk in person, but his daughter took the initiative to take on this task because she wanted to show off in front of the person she secretly loved. However, he still had some doubts about what Luo Guang told Ashley. In the latest report he received, it was mentioned that because the source of infection was unknown, the damage report of Portland City had not yet been provided. However, Luo Guang, who was far away in Spain, said that he had accurate and real information in his hands. So it seems that whether in public or private, he has to have a good talk with the other party. My daughter said that you have information about the biochemical crisis in Portland. And it's what I need. To be precise, it's the real situation in Portland now. Luo Guang was neither humble nor arrogant, and did not change his attitude because the other party was the president. For example, Portland only fell 2 districts at the beginning and completed the blockade, but now almost the entire city has fallen. He did not keep the other party's appetite, and directly told the other party the information in a general way. This was for Ashley's face. Regardless of whether President Graham loves his people like his own children, this kind of thing about his political achievements will definitely attract his attention. Luo Guang's words successfully attracted President Graham's attention, but he did not immediately believe Luo Guang's words. Instead, he called his secretary and asked him to confirm the situation. The secretary had handled the military's Portland report and immediately discovered the seriousness of the problem, and hurriedly left the White House's presidential office. President Graham did not avoid Luo Guang. The information could not be confirmed in a short time, so Graham took the initiative to chat and took the opportunity to understand Luo Guang's situation. He already had Luo Guang's intelligence resume on his desk, but it was not enough. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. By the way, it is said that you were hired by our department to participate in the rescue operation. This is how Simmons explained to the president why Luo Guang suddenly joined the rescue mission. That's right. But from what I saw in your resume, it seems that it was more about biochemical incidents. I didn't know the situation there at the time. Why did you come to find me? Luo Guang had already compared his confession with Simmons and replied, that incident was an internal rebellion and there was an insider, so we had to find a trustworthy outsider. Are you a trustworthy outsider? President Graham looked at Luo Guang's resume and combined with the second half of Luo Guang's sentence, he understood that there must be a lot of things hidden in this resume. Based on his understanding of his country's intelligence department, the other party's job at Umbrella Company may have been specially arranged by his intelligence department, and then he was in the Red Claw Force, which was also inextricably linked to the Lighthouse Nation. It seems that the other party is also a loyal person who has sacrificed a lot for this country, President Graham thought. I think the result of the rescue has told you whether I am trustworthy or not. Trust cannot be proven by words. What Luo Guang has done is the best proof. The president smiled and replied, indeed, but I have something more curious. Did you leave the Red Claws because GIMZ poached you with a high salary? It's not good to use the Red Claws as a springboard to join the FBC on a larger stage. This is to confirm whether Luo Guang was also sent as an undercover agent by the intelligence agency when he went to establish a relationship with the GIMZ. First of all, I didn't join the GIMZ force. As for the FBC organization, I don't have too many comments, but Luo Guang did not answer these questions clearly. This is not an evaluation, it is your evaluation. President Graham heard that Luo Guang's tone did not like that organization. Isn't that organization also very good? It has official support from various countries and is powerful. And he's very ambitious and ready to show off his talents. It looks like the future is bright, right? Yes, since you also know this, why don't you join in, which will make you more useful? I have something to do. To President Graham, who suspected that he was his own intelligence agent, Luo Guang's words meant that he had been assigned other latent missions. Your Excellency, the other party's information is correct. The secretary knocked on the door and came in, saying to President Graham, "Okay, you go out first." President Graham waved the other person out. After his secretary closed the door, he said to Luo Guang, "I'll call Portland first." Since Luo Guang provided valuable information, he would return the favor and help Luo Guang handle the matter first, while also beating up the person in charge of the Portland incident. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 303. I didn't expect it, Luo Guang muttered and hung up the phone. He didn't expect that the other party would suddenly invite him to his home for dinner. Doesn't that mean he would go to the White House for a meal? But then I thought about it, and it seems that the White House is not a mysterious place. Many celebrities have gone in and taken photos with the president. Thinking about it this way, Luo Guang also felt that this matter was no big deal. Moreover, President Graham is not asking Luo Guang to go to Washington for dinner now. Ashley still has a lot of things to do in Spain, such as her studies, which will happen in mid-June this year at the earliest. When the matter was over, Luo Guang returned to the headquarters of the GIMZ force in South Africa after a long journey without looking for Jill. When he and Leon were performing a rescue mission, without knowing what happened, the email address created in Wusong's name suddenly received many work commissions. In addition to these, there are still many things to deal with, such as confirming G.I.M.Z's next course of action, anti-biochemical training, cooperation with a mysterious country, and matters at its own research institute, etc. As for Jill, the BSAA European branch she was responsible for had just started and was also in a lot of trouble. However, the European branch has recently added many capable people, so we finally have some time to rest. So the two people who couldn't meet each other chose the method of talking over the phone. Luo Guang was still thinking that after the situation on both sides stabilized, he would definitely drag Jill to the country of delicious food for a good vacation. They can be as extravagant and depraved as they want, otherwise with the current level of chaos in the world, they will definitely be extremely busy in the future. After returning to the GIMZ training ground in South Africa from Spain, Luo Guang just sat on the chair in the office when Kaidi made fragrant coffee and brought it in. "Thank you, has Jack been good lately?" Luo Guang took the coffee and asked. "Chatting with a woman who has children, talking about her son is the best choice." Kaidi smiled and said, "Not bad, my academic performance is also passable, I finally caught up with my study progress." Jack did not go to school due to environmental reasons when he was a child. Although his mother taught him English and mathematics so that he would not become illiterate, he was not able to learn various knowledge systematically like in school. And the school he went to was no ordinary school. The principal was Chinese, and he westernized the exam-oriented education and brought it here. The depth and breadth of the knowledge learned is a level higher than that of other schools. So now that Jack can catch up with the progress, it shows that he is also working very hard. In addition to studying, he often goes to the training ground to learn those combat skills. Everyone is also very kind to him and teaches him a lot. Although Caddy still didn't want Jack to go to the battlefield, she was finally convinced and decided to follow Jack's wishes, so it's a good thing that her son can now learn various life-saving skills. Jack was indeed born to eat this bowl of rice. Hank had also told Luo Guang about this before. That's good. By the way, have the rewards for the Portland incident been transferred? Luo Guang asked. Already transferred. Okay, then you go ahead and do your work. I'll handle the mail. Okay. By the way, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. Your new clothes are quite suitable today. Today, Kaidi's secretary uniform was changed from black to blue, and her stockings were changed from black to flesh-colored, which is not so heat-absorbing. Thank you, then I'll go get busy. After Kaidi finished speaking, he quietly left the office, closed the door gently, and then a smile appeared on his face. In this place where there are a lot of straight men, my beauty is not as attractive as those guns. It is not easy to hear praises from others. Luo Guang's last words were to put Kaidi in a good mood. During his absence, Kaidi was busy working all day for GIMZ, which was very hard. Even before Luo Guang arrived, she had already bought a kennel for Xiaobai, which was located in Luo Guang's office. But after Xiaobai had eaten and slept well, he went out to have fun and was not in the office. Everyone also likes this little guy very much, and they will pet him no matter what. Just a simple sentence can improve employees' goodwill and improve work efficiency, so why not say it? Luo Guang withdrew his gaze, opened his email and read it. The current network is not as developed as the world before he traveled, and there is no function to intercept spam. But it's not like that world where you get spam all the time. The world is not peaceful anymore. In addition to the Portland biohazard incident, there was also a small-scale biohazard in a place called Harlan City. However, the leader of that city sent a new email 10 minutes later, indicating that the FBC had proactively contacted them. Therefore, the city leaders plan to cooperate with them and hope that GIMZ will keep this matter confidential. In order to boost the city's economic level and revitalize this ancient city, the city of Hairan plans to hold a global sports meeting here. To this end, they did not hesitate to spend a lot of money and exhausted all resources to build new urban areas and stadiums. Therefore, the desperate city leaders do not have much money to hire anti-biochemical or other mercenaries. Although BSAA is free, there is a problem, that is, the biohazard incident in Harlan City cannot be fermented, let alone the superiors of the country or international organizations such as the United Nations. Otherwise, what's the point of going through all the hard work to host a global games? So although Harlan is a NATO member city, FBC was not on their candidate list at first. Because they are just a city government, and asking FBC for help requires the invitation of the national government to be in accordance with procedures, and there are also reasons for confidentiality. Unexpectedly, FBC came directly to the door. Fortunately, the other party first went to the Z government of Harlan City, otherwise the mayor and others would cry to death. In the end, Harlan City and FBC reached an agreement, and FBC would keep secrets for Harlan City. In fact, that was F.B.C's first mission, but it had to be kept secret and was not large in scale, so Morgan focused on the Portland incident. Back to Luo Guang, he politely replied to Harlan City and then continued to check the next email. The next email was a GG email sent by a Lighthouse arms dealer, but the weapons and equipment of the GIMZ troops had been exclusively represented by Susan, the middleman. So he saved the phone number on GG and deleted the email. Although it is not useful for the time being, multiple channels are not a bad thing. The next email is also about arms, but it is not from those arms dealers, but from a serious weapons company, Austrian Glockco, Ltd. The purpose is not to promote its own weapons, but to cooperate with GIMZ to fight GG. This does not affect the exclusive cooperation agreement with Susan. In addition to the boss Luo Guang, who is a fan of the Beretta M9 series, Many people in his army are indeed accustomed to using Glock series pistols. So it is not a big problem for everyone to switch to Glock pistols. The Square G series pistols with holsters are also more suitable for equipping various tactical devices, such as red dot sights, etc. Glock not only sent cooperation emails to GIMZ, but also BSAA and FBC, the two largest anti-biochemical organizations today, received cooperation applications. Glock thinks that the demand for anti-biochemical warfare will become the fourth market in addition to the military, police, and civilians, so it wants to occupy the entire pistol market in the field of anti-biochemical warfare in advance. There is another link in the cooperation email, which is a questionnaire. It hopes that GIMZ can provide suggestions for them to improve the pistol to meet the special combat needs of the biochemical crisis. The first question is the bullet caliber that GIMZ uses more often and its opinions. The commonly used bullets for pistols are 9mm bullets and .45 ACP bullets. 9mm bullets are enough to face most of the infected monsters mutated from civilians, because their power is enough to penetrate the skulls of most types of infected people. We use .45 ACP bullets because of its subsonic characteristics, because the enemies of the biochemical crisis often move at the sound. Luo Guang wrote. Although the power of the .45 ACP bullet is higher than that of the 9mm, the recoil is relatively greater. When facing multiple zombie targets and the power is generally excessive, using 9mm bullets can actually keep the shooting accuracy longer. Shooting accuracy is what they need most when dealing with zombies and other enemies. In fact, from his and GIMZ members' experience summary, pistols are more of a bonus in general situations, or a lifesaver in emergency situations. Facing most mutated biochemical monsters or biochemical weapons, Luo Guang always recommends them to use assault rifles and above. This is why Carlos in the Angel Squad still used an assault rifle as his main weapon in the Smoke Island incident, instead of cooperating with others to lower the sound of the weapons to the same level. This is not a game. How could Luo Guang let his men go to the battlefield with only a pistol? In fact, Luo Guang considered more about the choice of bullet types, such as hollow point bullets that cause greater damage to the flesh or armor-piercing bullets that are conducive to breaking through defenses. As for whether hollow point bullets are banned internationally and whether armor-piercing bullets are legal to hold and use, they cannot constrain the GIMZ mercenary organization. Of course, Luo Guang would not bring these to the table and write them in the questionnaire of the other company. The second question is the occasions for the use of pistols and the special needs for biochemical crises. Pistols are more of a secondary weapon. Generally, pistols are needed when the main weapon is lost or the bullets are empty, which is a very urgent situation, so the user needs to draw the gun quickly and shoot. As for the problem of indoor combat, short assault rifles are a good solution. Things like human-machine efficiency, reliability in complex environments, and large ammunition capacity are also commonplace, so I won't go into details here. In fact, small teams like our GIMZ are more inclined to personalized customization and modification. What Luo Guang wrote is not only his own ideas, but also some feedback from his team and answers discussed in daily chats. In fact, the existing weapons and equipment can basically meet the daily needs of the anti-biochemical battlefield. After all, they have to deal with carbon-based organisms, not T-800 terminators, which eventually leads to the awkward positioning and role of pistols. The questionnaire only has these two questions. Not long after Luo Guang submitted it, he received a thank you email from Glock, and also proposed that their company send a gun customization and modification technician to provide free services. Luo Guang handed this matter to Kaidi to handle, and asked her to set a time when everyone in the combat unit was present. Continuing to check emails, I next saw emails from Samus and Tanya. Huh? Samus has also left the Red Claws. Luo Guang was a little surprised, and the two of them wanted to apply for the job. Samus stayed in the Red Claws until the end. In fact, in order to give permission for those who did not want to work for the FBC to resign. Without hesitation, Luo Guang immediately called the number on the email to contact the other party. "Hello, I am Wu Song, the boss of GIMZ. Sorry to keep you waiting," Luo Guang said directly. Samus has experience in managing the Red Claws and is the managerial talent their army lacks most. If the other party can take over the management position, he can be freed to focus on his own affairs. As for Hank, in addition to maintaining his physical abilities in his recent free time, he is also learning various management knowledge to prepare for his future retirement life. This is because he has recently noticed signs of decline in his physical abilities. Although the decline is slow, it is enough to attract his attention. However, it will be at least 10 years before Hank decides to retire, unless something unexpected happens. "Hello, Boss Wu." Samus and Tanya live in the same room. Hearing the movement from Samus' side, Tanya exerted strength on her waist, sat up from the bed, wrapped herself in a bathrobe and came to Samus' side. After the two of them left the Red Claws, they never thought about joining other official organizations, including BSAA, because they did not want to be controlled by others in their anti-biological activities. Therefore, GIMZ, an unofficial anti-biochemical organization, became their only choice. There are also people who want to follow the path of GIMZ and engage in anti-biochemical business, but the scale is not large and there is no publicity like GIMZ, so they are skipped directly. If Tanya was against biochemicals based on her inner sense of justice, then Samus was more motivated by hatred. Her former comrades from the army died in the blood plague biochemical crisis in Trumbull Valley. "Are you free now?" Luo Guang asked. Samus replied, "Yes. If you are still willing to join our GIMZ force, you can come over today to discuss the contract salary." Without further ado, Luo Guang directly invited the other party to join. Boss Wu, did you just read your resume and then directly agree to our joining?" Sams continued, "There is no such thing as an interview, but you think we are suitable for your army? Aren't you worried about our falsified resumes? Because we, GIMZ, had the intention to invite you to join us." "Oh? Do you know about us?" "Luo Guang recommended you to me." After Samus and Tanya looked at each other, Samus said, "Has he also joined G.I.M.Z?" Luo Guang thought for a moment and said, "He has always been our sponsor." "I see. Then we'll see you in the afternoon." Samus hung up the phone and said to Tanya, "It looks like our vacation is coming to an end." Tanya moved her shoulders, ignoring the slipping bathrobe, revealing her muscular body underneath, and said, "It's just what I wanted. If I continue to rest like this, my body will get rusty." Samus smiled and said, "It is said that there are many masters there, you shouldn't feel bored. They have also investigated GIMZ and know that there are many former Umbrella personnel inside." But Samus is not the kind of person who would discriminate against all employees of Umbrella because the company has done bad things. Just like her former Red Claws, there were people with ulterior motives and people who were truly anti-biochemical. Time passed quickly. Sams and the two came to the GIMZ training ground, passing by those who signed up for classes or came to shoot and play, and arrived at Luo Guang's office. In addition to Luo Guang, Kaidi is also here to listen to the boss's orders at any time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 304. The meeting between Samus and Wu Song, Luo Guang, was very harmonious. First, Tanya, whose salary was the same as other frontline combatants, plus bonuses for other businesses. Unlike other mercenaries, G.I.M.Z's sources of income were more diverse, and all of them were legal businesses. One of the important reasons why G.I.M.Z's headquarters was allowed to be opened in one of South Africa's capitals. When they reached retirement age or could no longer fight on the front line due to physical reasons, they could continue to stay in GIMZ to do other jobs, such as instructors of tactical training courses, safety officers at the shooting range, etc. Luo Guang made clear arrangements for his men. Because GIMZ had good benefits, Cuddy had to check the Army's recruitment email from time to time. Luo Guang gave Cuddy the positions of instructors and safety officers, and used another email. People in the combat troops occasionally played these roles in their spare time to earn some extra money. Next was Samu's. Luo Guang got straight to the point and asked directly if he could accept a management position. What exactly does this management position refer to? What kind of work do you have to do? Basically, you help me take care of the specific affairs here when I'm not around. Boss, are you often away? Samu's role changed very quickly, and he was called the boss so quickly. Luo Guang nodded and said, it depends on the situation. I'm not here quite often. It's not easy for our GIMZ to develop to this point, and there are many places that need to be taken care of. And we don't have enough combat manpower, but according to my investigation, biochemical crisis incidents around the world seem to be getting more and more frequent, so we may have to expand again recently, or open branches. Because he planned to put Samu's in a management position, Luo Guang told him about G.I.M.Z's future plans. Boss, now that FBC and BSAA are so powerful, how can we, the unofficial ones, compete with them? Samu's asked a more concerned question. Luo Guang said indifferently, as long as the biochemical crisis can be solved, what does it matter if we deal with it or not? And the combat personnel don't have to take risks. Samu's, the main force to prevent the solution of the biochemical crisis has always been the armies of various countries. Let's not talk about the FBC on the NATO side, and with the establishment of the BSAA, other countries have also had good choices, so the number of our work commissions is not large in itself. Samu's and Tanya heard this and felt that their boss didn't seem to be as motivated as they imagined. They didn't want to sit in the office and watch others solve the biochemical crisis. Luo Guang carefully observed the expressions of Samu's and Tanya, and felt that the other party didn't agree with what he said, or it didn't meet their needs. Tanya is quite straightforward and said, we don't want to waste our time here. We want to try our best to solve various biochemical crises. Luo Guang nodded to show his understanding and said, in this case, wouldn't it be more suitable for you to join BSAA? If you need it, I can also introduce you to the European branch of B.S.A.A. He knew that Samu's and Morgan didn't get along and would definitely not join FBC, so he didn't even mention the name of that organization. Indeed, Tanya and Samu's are both rare talents, and they are also unwavering anti-biochemical fighters. It's not a big problem to go to GIMZ or the current BSAA. As for the problem of B.S.A.A.'s deterioration in the later period, it would be the best if he can solve it. If he can't solve it, the frustrated Samu's and the others will naturally return to their own GIMZ. Samu's touched her chin and thought, the slogan on your official website is more exciting than what you just said. Of course, I am using the English version of if you want to get promoted and make money, please go elsewhere. If you are afraid of death, don't enter this door, Luo Guang thought to himself. Samu's, where do you think the main source of the current biochemical crisis will be? Those pharmaceutical companies, or certain forces, officials, etc. Samu's answered the question immediately. She had thought about this problem a long time ago. Luo Guang nodded in agreement and said, those guys are usually rich and powerful. If they want to get the biochemical virus, what good way is there? Are you saying that there are those people in the BSAA and the F.B.C? Samu's thought of this naturally. During the Red Claws period, why did she always send Luo Guang's special operations team to carry out tasks? She was worried that the biochemical crisis virus would be stolen out of the quarantine area for sale or personal use. Let me ask you a question. Do you think there won't be any? Luo Guang's words silenced Samu's and Tanya. Seeing this, he continued, not only these two organizations, but my organization may also have subordinates of those people. It's just that he has provided insurance for those people. That's why I hope you two can join us, Luo Guang said. As for the question of whether you want to fight against the biochemical crisis head-on, let me ask, are you fighting against the biochemical crisis to make yourself feel comfortable? Of course not, but if you don't take the initiative to find a job commission, there is no need to form this GIMZ, right? I didn't say we didn't take the initiative. First of all, we have cooperation with BSAA, so not all biochemical crises are left to BSAA and FBC to solve. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Secondly, you also know what Luo Guang did before, right? He has his own intelligence network to find those biochemical crises that no one cares about. Finally, we just accepted the commission from the Lighthouse country recently. Do you still think there will be no chance to do a big job here? Luo Guang snapped his fingers, and Cuddy behind him put the evaluation form brought back by Carlos this morning on the table for the other side to check. The military seal was clearly stamped on it. Samus and the others had served in the army, so they could naturally tell whether the seal was true or false. The two looked at the seal and fell silent again. Really, if that's the case, why didn't you say this before? In the end, Tanya couldn't stand it anymore and broke the silence. I didn't even say but, and you said that. Luo Guang was speechless. Okay, Tanya. Boss Wu, I'm sorry for our arbitrary behavior. It's okay. Tanya's straightforward personality is better than those who keep things in their hearts. I'm not afraid of misunderstandings, I'm afraid of lack of communication. Thank you. I still feel that staying in GIMZ will be more comfortable than B.S.A. Samus complimented slightly. After the two sides discussed the salary and other matters, Luo Guang asked Caddy to prepare the contract and then notify others to gather at the indoor basketball court to meet the new colleagues together. Samus, the people below may be a little unruly. Do you have any ideas? Do you need my cooperation, in order to let Samus take up the post as soon as possible? He asked. Samus shook his head and replied, no thanks. Okay. One more thing, Tanya, do you have any talent to recommend? The personnel structure of other teams is basically stable, so I think it's better for you to lead a team by yourself. Yes, but I don't know if they can come. I'll contact them first. Well, you can contact Samus or Cuddy when the time comes. Boss, are you going out? Samus guessed. Luo Guang did not hide it and said, in a few days. After dealing with things here, I will go to Europe to discuss things with BSAA. To be precise, it was to talk about things, by the way, mainly to accompany Jill. And the person to talk about things was not Jill, but O'Brien, the current commander of BSAA. He told Samus before that the cooperation with BSAA was not just to stabilize the other party, that was indeed the next course of action for GIMZ. Hearing his boss say this, Samus also understood and said nothing more. After Caddy came to inform everyone that they had assembled, Luo Guang brought Samus and the other two to the combat troops and introduced them to everyone. Samus quickly established his prestige. In fact, Hank and others were most afraid of an amateur leading the experts. After knowing that Samus had served in the army and managed the Red Claws, they actually had no dissatisfaction in their hearts. However, Samus, who didn't know this, directly used the simplest and most violent method to establish prestige. He used close combat to beat most people in a single duel. This directly shocked Luo Guang. He really didn't see that Samus, who wore a hip skirt every day, was so good at fighting. Only Hank and a few people who were proficient in close combat escaped. But Samus fought in a hip skirt, which restricted her leg skills, otherwise there would be more people falling to the ground. I now have some doubts whether it is a waste of talent to put you, Samus, in a management position. Luo Guang smiled bitterly. I'd better forget it. I can't refuse to admit my age. I feel tired easily after strenuous exercise. Samus suddenly thought of something. Speaking of which, boss, you look like a person who exercises. How about a few hands? Tanya watched Samus fight and felt itchy, and challenged others while shouting. Luo Guang, who barely won, left the indoor basketball court and left time for Tanya and the others. And he found Xiaobai to learn about its recent life, and reminded it to remember to hide its special features. In order to deepen her memory, Luo Guang also played her a few science fiction movies with dissected alien creatures and videos of those crazy scientists, which scared her to tremble. After coming to GIMZ, everyone treated the boss's dog very well, and life was very comfortable, which made it unconsciously relax and become more and more like a dog. So Luo Guang wanted to make it alert, so that it would not be abducted and still wag its tail thinking that someone took it out to play. After finishing the GIMZ work, he did not go to Europe immediately, but went to his own GIMZ research institute to meet Louis. Perhaps because the researchers in this institute are basically former Umbrella Corporation people, Louis adapted well and quickly joined the project team. Even his boss went to find him, but was driven away after a few words, saying that he was affecting his experiments. Luo Guang left with a smile, and then found Linda Baldwin, the director of the institute, to ask about the latest research progress. All the biochemical viruses in this research institute were not brought back by the GIMZ troops, and he would not order his combat troops to do such a thing. So where did these biochemical viruses come from? The answer was gathered from the Donald Family Research Institute, and even included the thing tentatively named lycanthropic fungus on Smoke Island. The black smoke produced by the fungi is actually a means of reproduction for these animalized fungi. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. And as long as there are enough nutrients, the fungus will produce smoke. The last earthquake erupted the fungal spores that had accumulated for many years, and the sea breeze blew them to the towns of Smoke Island and the coastal city of Portland. Linda and Louis' main project now is to find a way to deal with this fungus. What happened to the FBC beret at the fungus nest? He also learned about the situation from the channels of Organization X and told the researchers. This high-temperature resistant zootic fungus would be a big problem if it spread. Have you found the weakness? Luo Guang asked, leaning against the cupboard in the restroom, looking at Linda who was making coffee. Linda added 2 pieces of sugar to the coffee, took a small spoon, stirred the coffee gently, and replied, the extremes of things must reverse the situation. Although those fungi are resistant to high temperatures, their resistance to cold is very low. As long as the temperature reaches below 10 degrees Celsius, they will enter a dormant state and gradually die at 4 degrees C. Does that mean using something like liquid nitrogen to make a cryobomb or something like that can deal with this fungus? This is an idea, but liquid nitrogen is not easy to store at room temperature. It not only needs to be sealed and stored, but also has a suitable heat-resistant storage. That means the cost will be huge. Yes, we also thought about using things like ice bullets, but in fact the damage caused is penetrating injury, not frostbite. Of course, there are many low-temperature products. With the cold-resistant ability of lycanthropic fungi, liquid nitrogen is not needed. Throwing a block of ice or a snowball can also cause damage, but it is impossible for them to bring an ice machine or snowball machine to the battlefield. So the problem is to find a way to deal with this fungus while controlling costs. Linda took a sip of coffee and said, some experimenters in our project team proposed to create something like a herbicide, and some people said to use magic to defeat magic, to cultivate natural enemies or competitors of the same ecological niche for the lycanthropic fungi, etc. Wait. I understand, just follow closely and don't let them get away with it. That's for sure. I don't want to encounter another biochemical leak, Linda said with a smile. In addition, Luo Guang also talked to the other party about the characteristics of this animal-like fungus. In addition to fungal spores, there is an unknown substance in the liquid secreted by this fungus. Linda replied, yes, although I don't know what this substance is, I guess that the cause of human degradation is this substance. Later, I purified the secretion and stored this unknown substance for use on mice, but it did not affect the effect. Depending on the dosage, the mice's desire to eat will also change, and it is also irreversible, until they finally die. Then she joked, it would be great if you could find some volunteers, boss. Stop being so talkative, you know this is impossible. It's not like your researchers gave you suggestions and then asked you to test me, right? Linda shrugged and said, who knows, there will always be sacrifices on the road of scientific research. If we don't do anything to ordinary people, what about those on death row? It would be a waste to just shoot those who have committed such heinous crimes. Luo Guang stared at the cynical smile on Linda's face and replied, you are right, but you scientists have endless desires. I opened an opening, and in the end you will only get worse. And you scientists can't research anything without using human experiments. Okay, I understand what you mean. Linda fought for her subordinates and explained. The latter sentence is indeed a good excuse to stimulate the researchers below. Luo Guang nodded, indicating that the matter was over. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 305. Although Linda said this in a joking tone, Luo Guang knew that there was some truth in it. But that was it. After Luo Guang had tested these researchers several times, he was not very confident about them, so the computer system of this institute was connected to that of Red Emperor. In the end, there were indeed researchers who wanted to cross the red line, and there was no need for the country where the institute was located to take action. He went directly to calm the troubles and provided insurance for those researchers who were the focus of attention. It is better to relieve than to block, so now these researchers will become mouth-talking monsters to vent whenever they want to break the bottom line of scientific research, but in the end they have to obey the bottom line for him. As for Louis, Luo Guang planned to observe the situation first. From the previous contact with him, Louis really wanted to reform himself. The herbicide plan to deal with the beast fungus was proposed by him. After visiting the institute, Luo Guang went to take a few looks at the company he opened in this country. After all, he was not a science major, so he could not provide technology far ahead of the times, but he could still give them a direction to make money and be the first to try it. Now, several projects of his companies have begun to make profits, but he did not divert funds to the GIMZ force, but planned to build a big company first. After handling all the things here, he returned to the lighthouse country, changed back to Luo Guang's face, showed up at the subordinate service store of the X organization, and then he really went to Europe. Inadvertently, he took a trip around the world. Back in Europe, with Jill, he can finally relax and vent human instincts. In the incident of the Church of Light, he has accumulated a lot of pressure. Not only Luo Guang, Jill also took this opportunity to vent the pressure of work inventing again and again. The two leaned on each other in bed, and no one talked about work without understanding the situation. They just leaned on each other quietly and let time pass. As before, Luo Guang got up early to buy vegetables and make breakfast. Perhaps because he was too busy, there was only bottled water in Jill's refrigerator, and the kitchen was covered with dust. Considering Jill's biological clock, Luo Guang simply wiped the stove with water, and chose to make egg and ham sandwiches, vegetable salad, boiled eggs and milk. This is today's breakfast. While making breakfast, he also turned on the TV to listen to the morning news. Morning. Breakfast began to be placed on the table. Jill woke up, scratched her hair, and left the bedroom to go to the bathroom. "Good morning, breakfast is ready," Luo Guang replied, then pulled out the chair, and ate it without waiting for Jill. In the past, Luo Guang would still wait for Jill to have breakfast together, but Jill felt embarrassed that her boyfriend had to wait for her after making breakfast so hard, so she told Luo Guang that she didn't need to wait for her to have breakfast. Yeah, Jill brushed her teeth, washed her face, combed her hair, and came out to have breakfast. Her skin was still tender after a night in the air-conditioned room, and she didn't need makeup at all. "What's on the news?" Jill asked after eating a sandwich. Luo Guang briefly summarized, "It seems to be about the ocean city of Terra Grigia, a floating city on the Mediterranean Sea. Construction began in 1993. Now the basic framework has been completed. This year, the solar matrix satellite, Regia Solis, will be launched into space. That city seems to have started to attract investment recently and is preparing to accelerate urban construction." She recently heard about the city from her colleagues who were chatting. "Yes, the experts on TV are talking about this, saying that the investment prospects are good and so on. It is expected to be put into use in 1 or 2 years. Jill finished his sandwich and peeled the eggshell, saying, "You don't want to invest?" Although the concept of sustainable development and environmental protection looks good, it is not clear whether it can be realized for a long time. She knew that Luo Guang also participated in various investments. Luo Guang, who knew the ending of Terra Grigia, replied, "No, I won't invest there. If the city can't survive the floating island incident, then his current investment will be in vain." "By the way, what did you meet with O'Brien to discuss today?" Jill asked. Luo Guang told his girlfriend that he wanted to cooperate with the BSAA troops, and said pitifully, "Now that 2 major anti-biochemical organizations have been established, our living space is squeezed to the point of being useless. But your troops still have a lot of other income. But how do you plan to convince O'Brien? Although our BSAA is not as good as the FBC now, it is still strong compared to you. Recently, we have discussed cooperation with Terra Sephir, just like we did before we became regular employees. Although you have a lot of people and enough money, you are still far behind in terms of practical experience in anti-biochemical warfare. This is the advantage of the GIMZ troops." Luo Guang continued, "Although the BSAA has deployed branches all over the world, it is still questionable how effective it is in the face of biochemical crises. So Chris and I now have to take care of the training of combatants. Although we have no practical experience, we will not be vulnerable. However, the former STARS still has limited manpower," Luo Guang replied, "and all the combatants in my unit have practical experience in anti-biochemical combat. It is better to have veterans lead BSAA recruits to perform anti-biochemical tasks than for them to go alone." This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Jill pondered and asked, "But this is not a long-term solution. When our men are familiar with anti-biochemical combat, you will be unemployed. It's hard to say what will happen in the future, and don't we have other ways to make money?" Luo Guang said this to Jill and O'Brien. Follow Jill to work, and then he went to talk to O'Brien alone. "I see. We do have room for cooperation in this area, but I can't offer you a high price. It's easy for you to reimburse for transportation, weapons and equipment, and bullets. You are thinking about this." O'Brien understood immediately. This part of the money is actually not small, and he has not thought about taking back the weapons and equipment since they have been reimbursed. Luo Guang smiled and did not answer. "Okay, we will prepare a draft contract first and then discuss the details." "Okay then." Luo Guang asked about the little tricks FBC did in Portland. O'Brien replied, "Chris has told me about the things over there. Later, I also checked the situation through my own means. It seems that your GIMZ unit has a lot of power behind it. Although there is no evidence, it does not prevent him from making various speculations. O'Brien did not know that the military leader did not force the GIMZ unit to do things because he was more cautious, so he thought that the lighthouse country military had long known that the power behind this unit was unusual. In addition, the sudden attention paid by the president of the lighthouse nation to this matter deepened the possibility of his speculation. What kind of power is there? We don't cooperate with those rich and powerful people. If the other party didn't mention it, Luo Guang didn't mention the president's matter, otherwise it would seem to be trying to cover up. Yes, although we have received funding from the United Nations and established a global anti-biochemical official organization, in the end we are still so difficult to move forward and can't play the role we should. There is no way. Many countries have not encountered biochemical crisis incidents. For them, it is just a tea talk after dinner. For those big countries, they can deal with it themselves. Luo Guang could only say that he could not help. O'Brien was not as disappointed as Luo Guang thought, and said, no matter what, it is best if the biochemical crisis can be solved. I think so too. I'm afraid that some people want to use the biochemical crisis to expand their power. Luo Guang planned to talk to O'Brien secretly about Morgan's matter, otherwise he was worried that the other party would follow the old path in the game and bring trouble to Jill. Are you referring to another organization? No one was named, but both sides knew who they were talking about. Luo Guang nodded and said, there were signs in the Portland incident. Although it is NATO's anti-biochemical military organization, it is actually mainly based on the lighthouse nation. The other boss also has a strong relationship with the lighthouse nation's military. Yes, and the lighthouse nation's military must support them more. According to their internal agreement, during a biological terrorist incident, the FBC will play a leading role. Even if the incident happened in other NATO member states outside the lighthouse nation, this actually gave the lighthouse nation an excuse to use the military to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. The more ruthless ones can even secretly release biochemical viruses in other countries, and then legitimately send FBC troops to perform anti-biochemical missions. Although O'Brien did not say these words, he believed that Luo Guang must have thought of this level. But even NATO members would not be willing to do so. It's a pity that the Red Claws were absorbed, otherwise those countries would have an excuse to refuse. The Red Claws' leadership in carrying out missions is not as great as that of the FBC, and the main leadership role is still the local government or the army. That's right. But the Red Claws are gone, and your BSAA is still there, and those NATO countries will definitely ask you for help. Even if you don't have leadership, you can get an observer seat. You mean let us monitor each other? This is very likely, but O'Brien said pessimistically, but this probably won't work. They will control all intelligence channels and only show us what they want us to see. At this time, you will need some non-staff personnel to help. Luo Guang's words made O'Brien's eyes widen, and he said a little surprised, but this is not a good thing. There are many risks to take if you do this. If you are discovered, I can't protect you. I have my own way to deal with this risk. Do you remember what I said to you before? Don't ignore whether the means of doing things are just because of justice. Luo Guang said, you are not suitable for the role of the mastermind. Controlling the direction of this BSAA ship is the greatest help to the anti-biological cause. I still can't understand what you said, just like you are sure that I will do whatever it takes for justice, even if it means doing bad things. Stop pretending. Aren't you that kind of person? Especially when the guilt of not being able to achieve justice is constantly tormenting you, will you really not take risks? O'Brien smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seemed that he was denying it, but he was really right. After the Umbrella incident was exposed, he did some shady things in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation to obtain intelligence, such as kidnapping and torture. Don't take too much on yourself. This shitty world can't be changed by you alone. Luo Guang looked at his watch, stood up and said, let's talk about this. Remember to contact me if you have anything. Wait a minute, why are you helping us like this? O'Brien wanted to confirm this, otherwise he would be restless after being seen through by the other party. Don't be too narcissistic. When we first met, I said that I was afraid that my little cutie would be deceived by bad people. It's the same now. I'm just doing it for Jill. O'Brien opened his mouth slightly, scratched the back of his head, and accepted Luo Guang's explanation. It seems that you really love her. So when do you plan to get married? O'Brien understood Luo Guang's purpose and could relax. She said that she would discuss marriage after everything is on track. Luo Guang had asked for his opinion long ago. Remember to send me an invitation. O'Brien also stood up, shook hands with Luo Guang, and then sent him out of the office. After leaving the headquarters, Luo Guang did not disturb Jill's work. He took his tourist ID and went around. As a result, he did not expect that he would meet someone he had not seen for a long time here. Luo Guang. A group of people wearing Terra Sephir uniforms were chatting and passed by Luo Guang. One of the women suddenly stopped, turned around and said Luo Guang's name with a tone of 7 points of surprise and 3 points of uncertainty. Luo Guang stopped and looked back at the other person. Compared with the person he remembered, there had been a lot of changes. No wonder he did not recognize him just now. There was no hesitation in his tone and said, Lin. Lin, is it someone you know? The people who were traveling with Lin stopped, and one of the wavy-haired women asked. Lin nodded and said to her companions, you go to the conference room first, I'll catch up with you later. The wavy-haired woman nodded, looked at Luo Guang curiously, then showed a look of sudden enlightenment, patted Lin's shoulder meaningfully, and said, okay, you pay attention to the time. I will ask for leave from your supervisor, just say you are not feeling well. The others seemed to think the same as the wavy-haired woman, smiled, and nodded in agreement. I haven't seen you for a few years. You seem to be much more capable. Are you working at Terra Sephir now? Luo Guang remembered that Lin was a college student in Raccoon City. Now she is wearing a black women's suit and looks smart and capable. Lin nodded and responded, yes, but I just joined recently. Luo Guang, did you join B.S.A.A? Luo Guang flicked the tourist pass on his chest and joked, I'm here for tourism. Traveling to a place like this, Lin covered her mouth, laughed, and asked, the matter in Raccoon City? I heard from others that you were bitten by a zombie. No? Maybe the other party saw it wrong, Luo Guang said simply, and apologized to the other party in his heart. Lin smiled and said, anyway, I'm glad you're okay. You too, Luo Guang also responded with a smile. The two hadn't seen each other for many years, and they didn't have much intersection in Raccoon City. Even if Lin had any thoughts at the time, it didn't matter now. The important thing is that everyone is still alive and well. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 306. Luo Guang and Lin exchanged phone numbers and waved goodbye. Lin had to rush to attend a cooperation meeting between Terra Sephir and BSAA. He called Carlos and asked him if he knew about Captain Victor. Carlos told Luo Guang that he had also looked for his old captain when he joined the GIMZ team, but Captain Victor had retired. Another teammate Tyrell also retired from the front line early after the Raccoon City incident and became a hacker in the rear. It was now 10:30 in the morning, and there was still some time before lunch break. Luo Guang had nothing to do here, so he planned to go out to find something to eat. At the same time, he sent a text message to Jill to ask if she was free for lunch. The days passed slowly. During this period, Luo Guang received an invitation letter from Harlan City to the opening ceremony of the sports meeting sent to the boss of the GIMZ team, but watching athletes sweat was not as interesting as watching Jill sweat, so Luo Guang did not go to Harlan City. However, when Luo Guang and Jill were watching the opening ceremony of the Harlan Games on TV, they saw a large group of zombies rushing into the gymnasium and biting the humans they saw. 3 months ago, Harlan City sent an email to the GIMZ troops, saying that a small-scale biochemical crisis had occurred. Then the FBC sent elite personnel to solve the problem and collected the virus there, the Harlan virus. The FBC completed the task quickly and did not leak the secret, so at the request of Harlan Mayor Errol Asani, the Beret team continued to stay in this ancient city to escort until the end of the World Games in Harlan. Unfortunately, the outcome of the matter did not develop as expected by the people of the Harlan city government. A week before the games began, there was an incident in the old city of Harlan where someone inexplicably ignored the dissuasion and attacked others. But most people living in the old city had little knowledge, and media tools such as television and mobile phones had not yet become popular. In addition, after the doctors in the old city admitted the patients for diagnosis, they judged that it was just rabies, so what happened in the old city was not reported to the Harlan city government in the end. The FBC garrison was mainly concentrated in the new city, so they did not discover the existence of the biochemical crisis in the first place. When the biochemical incident spread to the new city, there was only 1 day left before the opening ceremony. The upper level finally knew that the biochemical crisis incident had occurred again in Harlan City, but Mayor Errol did not stop the opening of the sports meeting. Instead, he asked the FBC garrison to solve the problem immediately and sent an engineering team to isolate the new and old cities. The external publicity was to maintain the order of the sports meeting and protect the personal safety of tourists. The plan to isolate the old city was formulated as early as the first biochemical crisis, so the materials were already prepared. Mayor Errol and FBC leader Morgan had a telephone conversation and responded to Morgan's request to stop holding the sports meeting and let everyone stay at home. He answered like this: "Sorry, I can't do it. Now everything is going according to plan. The sponsors' money has been spent, the athletes are busy preparing for the games, their families have arrived to watch the ceremony, and tourists from all over the world are staying in hotels. And the international media are all here, waiting for the grand opening ceremony of the games, so our games must be held as scheduled, otherwise the entire reputation of our Harlan city will be ruined. But you are murdering the lives of all the participating athletes, media, and tourists." Morgan's rebuttal only received a sneer from the other party. "Morgan, you and I are grasshoppers in the same boat. No matter how you look at this matter, we entrusted you to solve the biochemical crisis, but UFBC did not eradicate the problem, which led to a recurrence." Errol's words silenced Morgan, but the other party would not give up and pass the buck. The final result is that the Harlan City Games will be held normally, and at the same time, the FBC must do its best to ensure the safety of the venue. But Mayor Errol also made a lot of unreasonable demands, such as not letting tourists find anything wrong, so FBC cannot use high-powered firearms at will, etc. Under the blessing of various factors, when the crowd was the most concentrated, zombies rushed into the stadium and triggered a large-scale infection incident. Since then, the biochemical crisis in the entire Harlan city has been out of control. The roar of zombies and the screams of people being bitten filled the entire living room. Whether it was the reporters and photographers on the scene or the TV station headquarters far away, they were all stunned in place, looking at the chaotic crowd, and did not cut off the live broadcast signal. Since the Raccoon City incident, the cruel side of the biochemical crisis has once again been nakedly displayed in the global live broadcast. Jill knew that she would be busy next, so she immediately took her coat and holster, said goodbye to Luo Guang, and drove to the European branch of BSAA with a serious expression. And Luo Guang could only sigh helplessly, took out his mobile phone to book a flight ticket back to the GIMZ troops to take charge of the overall situation. Boss Samus and Luo Guang met on the way to the combat command room. "Are the Wolf team and the Echo team ready?" Luo Guang asked. "Now in the GIMZ troops, Hank's Death Team and Wang Shuhong's Homo sapiens team are training a new group of anti-biochemical troops in the mysterious country. This is currently the largest cooperation project of GIMZ, which lasts for 1 year and includes 3 practical assistances without limit, reimbursement of all transportation and ammunition costs, food and accommodation, and a reward of $45 million. There are other detailed regulations that I will not describe one by one. That is why Luo Guang sent the strongest death squad. Hank can escape from danger many times, and his experience is invaluable. He mainly teaches the elite special forces of the mysterious country. Although Wang Shuhong and his team are not as strong as Hank and his team, their physical abilities and combat skills are closer to ordinary people, so they are responsible for teaching the middle and low-level officers selected from various military regions. Carlos and his team have just been on a mission before, so they will not be dispatched for this Harlan City mission. They will stay at the base to rest and watch the scene. At the same time, it is also to prevent the GIMZ troops from having no manpower available when other biochemical crises occur. The 6th team, the Kokan team led by Collis, should now be called a miscellaneous team. Because of the setbacks in the Atlantic Institute, Collis learned from his mistakes and changed the name of his unit after adding new members to remind himself not to be too proud and complacent. As the reserve force of the Wolves and Echo team, they will be on standby outside Harlan City. And Tanya also found teammates in 3 months. They were the 3 teammates of Luo Guang in the Red Claws recruit camp that year, Bis Karen, Ofer Karen, and Hongyi Fengzi. As for the name of the 7th team, Tanya directly named it Tanya Team after her. They went to a small town in Spain the day before yesterday to deal with a biohazard incident at a grand wedding. This mission came from Samus receiving a commission from Spain. The reason is that the virus of the biohazard incident at this wedding is the same as the virus in the anti-biochemical mission of the Red Claws in a certain apartment. I don't really want the FBC to intervene in my country's events. The scale of this biochemical crisis is not large. I just happen to know that the former commander of the Red Claws, Samus, is now in the GIMZ unit, so the commission came to me. Back to the conversation between Luo Guang and Samus, Samus replied after hearing the boss's question, "I'm ready to go. I will meet up with the BSAA troops at the airport over there." According to the cooperation agreement between Luo Guang and BSAA, this will be the first time they act together. In addition to the 2 of them, Turasafe will also follow BSAA to provide treatment and psychological counseling to the rescued survivors. It's been 2 weeks since the opening ceremony, and BSAA only got permission from the Turkish authorities 2 days ago to let them monitor the F.B.C's anti-biochemical operations as a third-party observer. This time is different from the one in Portland. The FBC has no command over either the BSAA, and they are not just watching from the outside, they also have the power to independently investigate the biohazard incident. The situation in Harlan is much more serious than Luo Guang imagined. The entire city has fallen. Under the command of the FBC and Turkish officer Kadir Süleyman, they finally used the building materials left over from the construction of the gymnasium to build a quarantine wall in a few days, blocking the entire Harlan city. The Berets team originally stationed in the new city area were wiped out because of the sudden incident. They could not stop the zombie swarm, which made Morgan furious and said that he must thoroughly investigate and retaliate against the mastermind behind this incident. Yes, there is a mastermind behind this incident. The new gymnasium and the new city area needed to install a lot of cameras because of the sports meeting. Then when they were investigating the video, they found that someone deliberately brought zombies to the gymnasium by truck and released them. At that time, everyone in the guard room ran to watch the opening ceremony, and no one was in the guard room at all. The released zombies entered the empty space, went all the way from the cargo area to the staff, and finally killed the spectators and athletes in the stadium. Not only the athletes and spectators, but also Mayor Errol Asani was at the scene at that time. The 2 pistols of the bodyguards behind him could not protect him at all, and the entire leadership team was wiped out. This also made Morgan lose a target for revenge for the Berets. Now the Turkish government's requirements for the FBC and Officer Suleiman are rescue all survivors in Hayran, eliminate all infected people there, find the mastermind behind the incident and thoroughly investigate the origin of the Hayran virus. When the FBC handled this incident before, it also looked for the origin of the virus, but in the end it found nothing. In addition, no other situation occurred, so the Hayran city's government did not investigate further. But in this incident, since it was found that someone was manipulating the situation behind the scenes, it must be investigated to the end. The two came to the Combat Command Center. The world map on the wall had been replaced with a city map of Harlan City, and various information was drawn on it. Cuddy was distributing printed materials to everyone. Before receiving the notification from BSAA, they were already preparing for intelligence. Everyone, this mission will be led by Samus, and the main task is to rescue the survivors inside. Luo Guang didn't exchange pleasantries and went straight to the point. Although the Turkish government issued 3 missions in total, the BSAA is only responsible for the rescue mission and the mission of supervising the FBC, so the GIMZ mission is also the same. But it is worth noting that this time you all have to lead a BSAA anti-biochemical tactical team to perform the mission. This time, the BSAA European branch dispatched a total of 3 teams, and the remaining tactical team was led by Jill herself. Wolf Mother Karena raised her hand and said, "Who has the command power in the team?" "We." The boss's answer was exactly what Wolf Mother wanted. She didn't want the new recruits of the BSAA to command her. As for the command power of the next level of mission, it belongs to the BSAA in name, but the people in charge of the garrison command are still our people. He was talking about Samus. What if we encounter the Turkish military and the FBC and a conflict occurs? This time it was the turn of the captain of the Echo team, Crisp, to ask the question. "Try not to. Contact Samus and ask her to communicate and solve it." Luo Guang paused, and continued, "But this does not mean that we are afraid of trouble. If the other party is unreasonable, we don't have to be polite. Protecting your lives is also a very important task." "What did the BSAA say?" Caroline Floyd of the Echo team asked. "They will distribute real-time battlefield recorders to everyone, including us." Luo Guang's words clearly show that the BSAA is also wary of the FBC. Samus clapped his hands, attracted everyone's attention, and then said, "Let's stop here for the time being. Let's focus on this biochemical crisis next. As for what you are worried about, we will talk later." Everyone on both the Echo team and the Wolf team nodded. If they continue to talk, the purpose of this mission will become to deal with the FBC. This mission was led by Samus, so Luo Guang gave her face and changed the question, saying, "The information in your hands is some of the main intelligence of this biochemical crisis, provided by Turkey, the client." After seeing the people below open the bound booklet, he continued, "First of all, the enemy will become more active at night. This is the characteristic of all infected people. So under normal circumstances, you will set out to enter the city to perform tasks when the sun rises, and evacuate back to the camp outside the city before sunset. There is one more thing to pay attention to. After leaving the city, you still have the task of assisting in the blockade of the city. Don't be careless just because you leave the infected area and let the infected run out of the wall to raid the camp," Samus added. Luo Guang nodded and said, "That's right. There are 3 types of enemies that can be confirmed at present. One is the ordinary zombie, which is the main enemy you face. The second type is called the plague demon, a half-human, half-zombie thing. Although it has not mutated completely, it has basically lost all human consciousness. This enemy looks basically the same as a zombie and will beg for mercy, but it is just to let you relax your vigilance, so you don't hesitate at all when facing the plague demon, just shoot directly." That's what he said, but Luo Guang felt that the two teams in front of him didn't seem to be the kind of people who would be soft-hearted. "What is the third type?" Wolf Mother asked while the boss was drinking water, so as not to make the atmosphere awkward. Samu said seriously, "The third type is called the Night Demon, which is the most troublesome enemy you face." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 307. After sending Samus and the others away, Luo Guang found Cuddy and asked her to look after the place, as he would be away for a while tomorrow. Got it? Where do you want to book a flight? No, I've already booked the ticket, Luo Guang replied casually. Cuddy had no complaints about this, and hurried back to take a pile of documents on his desk to his boss for signature. Otherwise, if the boss ran away, those documents would have to gather dust there. Luo Guang used to be a lousy worker, and he didn't know much about managing a company, so his strategy was to find management talents with trustworthy character to help him manage the company. He was responsible for adjusting the company's business strategy at a macro level, and would not interfere too much, but the power to sign was basically only exercised by him. This has both good and bad sides, but as far as the current situation is concerned, nothing has gone wrong. After leaving South Africa, Luo Guang went to a city with an airport near Harran, Turkey. And this time, he didn't bring any weapons with him, and the invisible Gurkha saber was also sent to the metal industry company for remelting. Although the Gurkha saber is one of the most mechanically consistent kukri, it is not suitable for Luo Guang to use the knife as a gun. This prompted him to go to the metal industry company for a deal and ask them to help him make a straight knife. The blade is about 23.78 centimeters long, 2.5 fingers wide, and the thickest part is as thick as a chopstick. There are also bloodletting grooves on both sides of the blade. The handle is a little wider than the blade, and there is a small hole on the guard, similar to a dagger gun, which is actually used by Luo Guang to shoot the electromagnetic rail gun. In order to ensure the concealment of this weapon, the whole knife is made of the alloy product TG-01 without leather or other things. Turkey does not have a nationwide gun ban, but has restrictions on firearms, explosives, etc. Only those who have obtained a gun license can legally own a gun. Luo Guang can of course get guns from some illegal channels. The middleman Susan, the Round Table, and the X organization are all capable of providing him with the weapons he needs. But this time he is not going to solve the problem of Harlan City, but to find trouble with the Harlan virus, so he plans to use local materials. This virus was named Harlan because it was first seen in Harlan City, which means that this is the birthplace of the Harlan virus. And the virus is not a demon, it will not appear in Harlan City for no reason and bring divine punishment to the city. In addition, the FBC searched the local area to no avail, so Luo Guang suspected that this was another secret research institute set up by the military or other organizations of a certain country in Harlan City, and then a leak occurred, so he went to Harlan City this time to find that research institute. Although the Harlan virus can be obtained from the bodies of those zombies, the more primitive the virus sample is, the more valuable it is to Luo Guang, and the system can analyze the potential of the virus to the greatest extent. Speaking of this, he asked the Donald family to confirm it and found that the X organization did not make any moves. This means that there may be people from the X organization among the various forces heading to Harlan City. In order to prevent others from discovering his whereabouts, he entered by infiltration. Because he was worried that the stronger infected people would sneak out of the wall after the monitoring failed, Luo Guang deliberately chose a sunny day to let Hong Huan cause some trouble to the surveillance cameras outside the blockade wall. After briefly paralyzing the camera, he took the opportunity to climb over the 10-meter-high concrete wall and entered the slums of Harlan City. He took out his mobile phone, but his personal mobile phone and Wusong's mobile phone had no signal, while the mobile phone of the X organization had full signal and could still make calls. His destination was a place called Zone Zero, and that place was in the old city of Harlan City. It was called Zone Zero because the first infected person received by the FBC troops when they were performing a mission here was named Patient Zero by their research institute. According to the research of the FBC Research Institute, it was speculated that Patient Zero was not the origin of this biochemical crisis. Several slightly different versions of the Harlan virus were found in his body. Moreover, these versions of the Harlan virus will not be transmitted through the air, but can only be spread into the victim's body after being scratched and bitten by the infected person, causing infection. Therefore, at the earliest outbreak, the number of infected people was not large and could be easily eradicated. However, these are not the most important research results of the FBC. Their biggest discovery is that this Harlan virus is likely to be a mutated rabies virus, but the Harlan virus overcomes the high lethality of the rabies virus and turns people into an unrefined immortal creature. However, this virus has many overlapping characteristics with the rabies virus, such as fear of water. This discovery, coupled with the fact that the virus was spread artificially, made the FBC suspect that someone deliberately developed this Harlan virus. As mentioned before, the goal of the FBC is not to rule the world, so Morgan did not conceal this matter, but reported it to NATO. Therefore, he also nodded in agreement to Turkey's request for the BSAA to join this operation as an observer. However, Morgan concealed most of the research on the Harlan virus after obtaining the consent of the boss of NATO, the lighthouse country. New city area, old city area, slums. The structure of Harran City is roughly like this. Luo Guang chose to start from the slums in order to avoid Jill and the others. This is a slum, not a slum, so the housing here is not shacks, but cement houses, and there are also apartment buildings with more than 10 floors. However, there were still relatively few such buildings. Luo Guang glanced around and saw 2 apartment buildings in the distance, and one of them seemed to have not been completed yet. The ground was full of garbage, and there were many cars on the road. Luo Guang checked several cars and couldn't ignite through the short circuit, so he could only drive number 11 to the old city. But now he has 2 things to do. The first is to find a suitable weapon, and the second is to find a place to spend the night. For food and water, he can just get them locally, and he actually doesn't eat or drink for several days now. It will not make the body feel weak. It was already past 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Luo Guang climbed over the wall. He didn't know the specific location of the research institute anyway, so he was not anxious to complete the task today. Those cars were also clean without any weapons, and there were only some bottles and cans in the trunk, so he had no choice but to focus on the houses with open doors not far away. If there were survivors inside, the door would not always be open, so Luo Guang did not shout outside the door. Just as Luo Guang was rummaging through boxes and cabinets, the owner and his wife heard the noise in the kitchen and appeared behind Luo Guang with staggering steps. Hearing the movement behind him, he already had a knife, a kitchen knife and a fruit knife in his hands. 2 zombies or 2 biters. This is one of the names given by the FBC to those infected with the Harlan virus to distinguish them from other zombies. Its appearance is very similar to that of T-virus zombies, with its skin also showing signs of decay and all its hair falling out. However, the combat ability is stronger than that of ordinary T-virus zombies. His physical abilities have not declined due to the disease, but his reactions have become dull and his body movements have become sluggish. Therefore, the combat effectiveness of the biters is much lower than that of those infected with the Plaka parasite. Just in case, Luo Guang still played with the 2 biting for a while. He wanted to confirm the weakness of this enemy and the accuracy of the FBC Research Institute's research. Luo Guang knew about F.B.C's internal research data because it was stolen by spies sent by organization. However, in order to prevent the secret from being exposed, Luo Guang did not tell the people in the GIMZ unit this information, otherwise he was afraid that the FBC would cause trouble for his own unit. The result is that the head is not the only shortcoming of these biters. They are basically the same as ordinary people, but they are more resistant to beatings than ordinary people, and there is no difference from the research report. There is also a variant of the biter, based on studies of its UV resistance. During the day, he is no different from an ordinary biter, but at night, after losing the exposure to ultraviolet rays, he turns into a monster that sprays blood mist, similar to the plague demon. Researchers named them night crawlers. After studying the enemy's weaknesses, Luo Guang killed the enemy with 2 swords, but when he picked up 2 more kitchen knives to check, he found that they had already been cut with curling blades. After throwing away the kitchen knife, he left the house. Although he could use the ability of hardened armor to make a sharp blade, he gave up this plan for the time being, because the neck twisting technique was enough to deal with those biters, and he didn't bring anything to eat. Just save energy. In order to confirm the situation in the entire city of Harlan and at the same time confirm the blockade situation in the old city, he planned to go to the twin apartment buildings first and climb up to see how the situation was. Apart from ordinary zombies, there are only plague demons along the way. These 2 kinds of zombies have been captured by FBC and sent to the Research Institute for research. For those who were not completely infected by the epidemic, FBC researchers proposed a research project to develop vaccines and serums on them, which was approved by their supervisor and financial allocation from Morgan. Morgan is also very concerned about this project. Because FBC researchers proposed that these epidemic monsters are basically normal humans who have been infected for a short time. If their serum progresses quickly enough, they may be able to reverse the infection progress of the international media and international organization executives in the stadium who have become epidemic monsters and save them. Important people. This will bring inestimable value to the FBC. After research, it has been found that the plague demon that has not launched an attack will continue to twitch and struggle, and sometimes make harsh roars from its mouth, as if there is still humanity left in its body. But the result is, as mentioned before, they will eventually succumb to the influence of the Harlan virus, become manic and restless, and will only hysterically attack all normal creatures around them. Because it is in the early or middle stages of viral transformation, the body retains high activity and does not become clumsy like zombies. In turn, these plague monsters have the ability to run quickly, climb over obstacles, and flexibly dodge attacks, and their attack methods are also different from ordinary zombies. They will not bite the prey arbitrarily after catching it like wild beasts. Instead, they will beat the enemy with their fists like ordinary people fighting. The plague demons do not have the habit of acting in groups, but they are attracted by loud sounds and eventually appear in groups. Generally speaking, Plaka parasite-infected people are more difficult to deal with than this kind of guy. The only one that interests Luo Guang now is the Night Demon. The Night Devil is a mutant-infected person, whose height has soared to more than 2 meters. The clothes on their bodies have been torn off by themselves, and their ribs are turned outward and swinging like tentacles. The biggest change is the mouth parts. The lower jaw is split into 2 halves and even split to the middle of the throat, and the teeth are longer and sharper. When not alarmed, it will make a sound similar to the little white wolf sticking out its tongue and breathing, but it will make a deep roar when it finds a target or launches an attack. This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The Harlan virus infected people around it will also attack together. Another point is that no matter whether this Night Devil is a woman before mutation, once attacked, it will make a sharp and shrill cry like a human woman. It has a higher running and climbing speed than humans, but it is not as agile as humans when turning and climbing over several obstacles in succession. Therefore, the survivors in Harlan City were not slaughtered by those Night Devils. But so far, the joint forces composed of the Turkish military and FBC have not made any gains when facing the Night Devil. After sacrificing the lives of dozens of soldiers, they injured the first night demon they saw, and the monster turned around and ran away. Although there is no evidence to prove it for the time being, other infected people took the initiative to block the United Army when the Night Demon escaped, blocking the attack line of sight, so some researchers have proposed that the intelligence of this Night Demon may not have degenerated. Its main attack method is to use the human body as a weapon, swinging its arms, clawing the enemy with heavy force, or jumping directly to the enemy. After throwing the enemy to the ground, they will use their claws to pierce the human shoulders to fix them, and then try to bite the enemy's neck with their mouths. However, this Night Demon, which sounds very powerful, has an incredible weakness, that is, sunlight, so they usually only act at night, and lurk in some places where sunlight cannot shine during the day, such as sewers. But no matter what, this creature is extremely lethal to soldiers, so FBC will propose daylight tactics to perform rescue and cleanup tasks during the day. As for the night demons, they plan to launch attacks in places where the sun could not shine after the first batch of ultraviolet tactical flashlights were produced, to eliminate the night demons and ensure the safety of their men as much as possible. Luo Guang had the leisure to deal with the enemies on the road at first, but later there were more and more enemies, so he changed his strategy and climbed directly to the roof, using the dense houses to jump and avoid the enemies on the ground. However, I don't know if the people in Harlan City are born to love parkour or for other reasons. Those plague demons have turned into parkour masters and chased Luo Guang all the way. This aroused Luo Guang's desire to win, and he began to speed up. With a strong jump, he crossed the entire two-way four-lane road and came to the roof of the opposite shop, easily getting rid of the zombies behind him. After running all the way, he was not far from the twin apartments, so he continued to walk with low footsteps, walking towards his destination as if he was shopping. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 308. Luo Guang was still a few hundred meters away from the twin apartments. After smashing the head of the last biter in front of him with a water pipe, he raised his head slightly and looked at a rooftop not far away. There were two people on it, who came to the rooftop before he fought with the zombie group consisting of more than a dozen biters. The man originally planned to call Luo Guang to escape to their side, and the few people left together, but he was pressed down by the other woman and hid behind the wall of the rooftop, revealing half of his head to watch Luo Guang fighting the group of biters. Because the woman found that Luo Guang did not run away after seeing the enemy, but walked straight towards the group of zombies. In her cognition, this was very strange no matter how she thought about it. So she held down her companion and wanted to make a decision after seeing the situation. Then they saw Luo Guang easily solve the enemies one by one, and after solving the last enemy, he took the water pipe that had been bent into a boomerang shape and looked up in the direction of the two of them. Knowing that he had been discovered, the man greeted him with good intentions and waved his hand. He then leaned out from behind the wall after confirming that Luo Guang had no hostility. The woman failed to stop her companion this time, sighed, and stood up. "This is not a good place to stop and talk, let's talk while walking. I am Amuro Ray, you can call me Amuro. What are your names?" Luo Guang sneaked in this time and naturally did not use his original face, and at the same time made up a name. "Hello, my name is Amir, her is Jade, and I have a younger brother named Rahim." "Hey, I didn't ask about my brother." Jade looked dissatisfied with his companion for leaking his family information. "Hey, anyway, he will call you Jade after seeing your brother." Amir looked like he did nothing wrong. "Amuro is not a woman, there is no need to hide your brother." If he was not afraid of being discovered by those zombies, Jade would definitely scold Amir. After introducing themselves, the few people stopped chatting and concentrated on rushing back to the base, but Jade has been observing Luo Guang. Her woman's sixth sense tells her that the man who calls himself Amuro is not simple. Amir and Jade are both members of a force called Tower. This force is just a temporary organization, similar to the self-help club, with leadership positions, but when making decisions, the leader will listen to the opinions of each survivor and will not force every survivor to go out. but relatively speaking, the tower force requires every survivor who is not injured to play to his strengths and contribute to the whole team. Even if you are just a star who can only sing and dance, and can't fight or cook, you have to boil water and wash clothes for others, and do something that you can do with your hands. Because the FBC and Turkey jointly blocked the communication of Harran City, these survivors couldn't make calls, so they had to hang a huge banner of SOS on the apartment building. It's just that this huge banner was hung on the other side of the apartment, so Luo Guang didn't see it when he came, and naturally didn't expect that there was such a group of people hiding in the apartment. The twin apartment buildings are the base of the tower forces. Amir and Jed went out this time not because they saw Luo Guang coming to meet them on the apartment building, but because they were going out to lead away the zombie group composed of more than a dozen biters to avoid too many zombies gathering around the base. Luo Guang accidentally helped their tower forces solve a problem, so Amir was so enthusiastic about Luo Guang. In his opinion, if such a tough guy joined, the people of the tower forces would definitely survive this disaster and hold on until the arrival of rescue. The few people finally came to the bottom of the twin apartments. One building was only 3/4 built, while the other was already built. The headquarters of the tower forces was naturally on the 2nd to 5th floors of the completed building. The current members of the tower forces are all tenants in the apartment and some civilians around, as well as the parkour group led by their leader. This apartment building has an elevator and the power is not cut off, but they did not use it, and they also sealed the stairwells leading to the 6th floor and above. Because there were still people who had mutated into monsters on the upper floors, the tower forces only had time to clean up the lower floors as a base. So each floor here is equipped with guards, wearing ordinary clothes, with magazines wrapped around their forearms and then tied with universal tape. They have no iconic badges and costumes, and the weapons in their hands are varied, including water pipes, baseball bats, machetes, etc. In addition, they also used the unfinished apartment building next door. There is a crane on the unfinished apartment building, hanging a bridge made of steel bars. Usually the two sides are not connected, but if necessary, the tower forces can arrange the crane duty person to operate the crane at any time to move the bridge between the two apartment buildings and connect the two sides. Then the survivors can blow up the stairs to stop the enemy, and evacuate to the other side. Although we use this as a base, we have not cleaned the apartments on the 6th floor and above, and those zombies are still wandering there. Amir introduced his own forces while leading Luo Guang to their leader's room. Not long after Jed came back, he separated from Luo Guang and the others to look for his brother. "Boss, the zombie problem has been solved. Also, we met a survivor who helped to clean up the zombies." Amir and the leader fist bumped, and the two seemed to have a good relationship. Here he used the word clean up and added an accent to emphasize that Luo Guang did not lure away the zombie swarm. The leader's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he understood what his friend meant, and introduced himself. "My name is Harris Bracken, just call me Harris. Welcome to the tower." Harris is a former parkour coach, and it was he and other parkourers who founded the tower force from the beginning. Amuro Luo Guang shook hands with the other party. "Are you a Lone Ranger? Do you want to join us?" Harris did not feel that the other party must join him just because he was sitting on a power, but asked the other party about their wishes. "Now we can't contact the outside world. It's too dangerous to move alone." Harris was promoting his power and said, "There are now 7 or 8 safety zones in this area, and our tower is the largest one. That Lei gang doesn't dare to mess with us now." The Rice gang that Harris refers to is a gang composed of local gangsters. They originally lived a life of fighting and killing, and they adapted to the biohazard environment faster than other civilians. They were also the first people to start shopping for $0. Therefore, they have the largest reserves of supplies and weapons. With this confidence, they can bully other survivors even more unscrupulously. But where there is oppression, there is resistance. Other survivor organizations, including the Tower Force, soon appeared and united to give the Rice Gang a hard blow before the Rice Gang finally calmed down. There are still plenty of various supplies in Harlan City, so the various forces will not fight each other for food and water. Although there are occasional fights, there are finally no more fights and casualties. Harris was describing the ferocity of the Rice Gang, but Luo Guang did not listen carefully. He was different from others and would not stay in the slum for a long time. He even thought about going to the Rice Gang to purchase weapons. "Sorry, Harris, I have to go to the old city to save people," Luo Guang made an excuse. Harris was stunned and said, "But that place has been completely blocked. If you want to go there, you can only go through the sewer." The other party inadvertently told Luo Guang a way to get to the old city, but to Luo Guang or most people, that kind of high wall couldn't actually stop humans at all. Because humans can use various tools, but the current situation does not allow it, and for Luo Guang, he can just jump over. However, after performing a full set, Luo Guang asked about the sewer, how to get to the sewer. Amir replied from the side, "The problem is not how to get there, but the Night Devil's lair in the sewer." Night Demon's lair, Luo Guang was stunned. This was information he didn't know. The daytime belongs to humans, and the night belongs to the Night Demon. Harris looked like he was surviving the disaster. He and Amir were the only people in the tower forces who encountered the Night Demon. "Can you tell me something? I might as well have a countermeasure if I encounter it." Luo Guang said this, obviously still wanting to go to the old city. Since the other party said he was going to save someone, probably a family member or something, Harris respected the other party's choice and did not try to persuade him. After thinking for a while, he told Luo Guang about the Night Demon. "They are very fast, especially on flat ground. We will never be able to outrun them. So if we want to escape, we can only use the buildings in this area to get rid of them using the parkour method." After the two Harris met the Night Stalker, they also used parkour methods to avoid being caught by the enemy, and finally led them to the territory of the Rice Gang, and thus got rid of the Night Stalker. Anyway, the survivors and the Rice Gang were in dire straits at that time, so they did this without any psychological burden. "Amir, when we used walkie-talkies to communicate with other safe points before, did anyone at the safe point mention the Night Devil's lair?" Harris couldn't remember it for a while. "You're mistaken. It was Lei who told Evans' people that they have a secret base in the sewers. They even encouraged us to go to the sewers with them, saying that there was their weapons arsenal there, and we would share half of it after everything was done. Give it to us, but you think the people from the Rice Gang can't be trusted and the risk is not small, so you didn't go," Amir replied. Luo Guang analyzed the information in their words. Although there was no need to go through the Night Demon's lair, it would be a good thing if he could collect information and send it to Jill and the others, which would help them avoid detours. Harris looked like he was awakened, slapped his forehead with his hand, and said, "Yes, yes, yes, it was the Rice Gang who said it. I have such a brain." It was also surprising for the Rice Gang to contact the tower forces for cooperation, so it was understandable that he didn't think it was the Rice Gang. "Is there a way to get around it?" Luo Guang asked, treating himself as an ordinary person. "We don't know the specific situation and location of the Night Devil's nest, but according to our observations, those Night Devils will not appear during the day and stay in the nest, but at night they will go out in full force to look for food." Amir then said, "I think with your skills, as long as you don't deal with those night demons, you'll be fine." "Does that mean you want me to go through the Night Demon's lairs at night when they are out in force?" Luo Guang understood that this plan was very risky. There might not be only night demons in those lairs, but he still had some confidence. If he, who has integrated multiple biochemical viruses, still loses to someone infected with the Harlan virus, then he'd better retire as soon as possible. Looking at Luo Guang, who was thinking about the feasibility of the plan, Harris sighed. It would be great if the other party could join his forces. In his opinion, the man who challenged more than a dozen biters alone was already a big boss at the level of God of War. With him, everyone's safety would be greatly improved. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Thank you for your information. I would like to ask, can I rest here for a night? Although it is summer in the northern hemisphere and the daytime will be much longer, he did not plan to continue on the road. Amir's plan is good, which allows him to avoid the night demon, but he loses the barrier of the daytime. As long as he is discovered on the road, it will be a life and death ending. He is confident but not arrogant. Luo Guang will naturally not give up this insurance and challenge the night demon again. That's no problem. Harris will naturally not refuse the other party's request. Anyway, there are many beds here, and other people will not have any objections. If there is, let Amir tell the other party about Amuro's combat effectiveness, and the other party will naturally not find fault. He was thinking in his heart, and heard Jed's voice coming from the intercom. Boss, there's something going on. 2 survivors appeared in the north and are running towards here, about 300 meters away, Jed said. Harris was thinking about replying when he heard Jed shouting, wait a minute, there are still a lot of zombies behind them. Except for the night demon, in the eyes of these ordinary survivors, there is no difference between the plague demon and the biter, they are all zombies. How many are there? About 70 or 80, and most of them are fast runners, Jed said hurriedly without having time to count them. Harris immediately ordered, let your brother notify others to prepare for battle. After that, he turned to Amir beside him and said, go find Jed and prepare to activate the trap to lead the enemy away. But now the zombies have already targeted those people, I don't think the noise may attract the zombies to change their targets. So Amir and Jed had been walking upstairs before, and they didn't attract the attention of the zombie group fighting Luo Guang because of this. Let's try it, we can't just watch them die without helping, Harris said silently. Amir nodded and immediately ran towards Jed. Harris turned to Luo Guang and said, Amuro, can you help us defend this place? Luo Guang did not agree or refuse, but just said, can't we just close the door and keep quiet? We don't need to fight the enemy, right? As a survivor here, Harris didn't know this, and replied, of course I know, but just in case, we still have to be prepared for battle. Luo Guang nodded and agreed to the other party's request.